everyone. Happy Thursday. I hope you're all doing well. Well, guys, today we're going to watch something that I've wanted to watch for a while. I've had it on the back burner. I really wanted to try to convince Joshua to join me, but Joshua, as you know, has an extremely busy schedule. And he is very meticulous about how he spends his time. And I don't know, I could never quite wrangle Joshua into committing to do a 2+ hour reaction video to Michael Knowles talking about the dangers of astrology and the new age practices. I cannot tell you how many people sent me this when it came out, where Michael Knowles roped in some random, quote unquote, expert in astrology. And the reason I say quote unquote is I've been in spiritual communities for about 20 years now. And I know enough to know that just because someone says they're an expert in something, don't mean they're an expert in something at all in any way, especially when it comes to spiritual stuff. Spiritual communities are wacky. Let me just be honest, there are a lot of nut jobs in the spiritual communities. And we can also talk about the fact, listen, man, I believe weird things. I'm one of those weird people who believes in astrology and believes in psychicking and believes in all this new age woo-woo stuff. And the reality is that it's actually not that controversial once you actually understand it. But there are a lot of people in spiritual communities who try to make it something it's not, don't want to, oh, dare I say, do the work to sort out their inner demons, integrate their shadow, as it were. And so a lot of people who claim to be astrologers, claim to be witches, claim to be shamans, claim to be this, claim to be that, claim to be the other. Oftentimes you'll listen to them and you're like, you don't really know what you're talking about. I know you don't know what you're talking about. And it's a combination of things. Either they have only done a surface level of study, either maybe they are actually really good at serving other people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have applied the principles to themselves at all, and sometimes they could stand to do that. There's just a lot of crazy involved in spiritual communities. I'm going to say it. I'm not going to defend the crazies in my midst. I'm not like the conservative right, where I'm not like the conservatives denying that there are racists on the conservative right. There actually are racists on the conservative right. But yeah, I want to hear what this woman has to say. And I feel like I have taken enough classes with Joshua at this point. Joshua taught me the tarot. Joshua brought out my inner psychic. I feel like I've done it. I've gone to Peru. I've done ayahuasca. I've worked with multiple shamans. I feel like I've done my homework enough to where I can speak intelligently about these matters and correct any mistakes that this so-called astrologer might have. Stevie J says New Age communities have the same ratio of good bad actors as traditional religious communities. That's exactly right, man. The land of woo is not immune to insanity. In fact, some might argue the land of woo has possibly a little bit more insanity in it than the average bear. But I'll say this, listen, you guys know I am not a Christian. I'm not a Jew. I am a generalized spiritualist. I do not call myself New Age because the things that like people like Michael Knowles call New Age have actually been around longer than Christianity. I'm going to say that again. It's been around longer than Christianity. It is older than the Bible. It is not new. It was branded as New Age as like a marketing thing, but it's not new. It's older than the Bible. So I just call myself a generalized spiritualist. I have worked with a variety of teachers all over the world. I feel like I know my stuff pretty well. I'm not as expert as some. I'm maybe like I'm above average, but I'm not like, the master expert. I can hold my own. So we're gonna watch this today. Michael Knowles had a 2-hour conversation with a former astrologist about the dangers of those new age thinkings. And what I suspect it's going to say is it's going to be something to the effect of well, I mean, she might talk about demons and stuff like that, maybe, but I suspect in there we're gonna find that there's an attack based on this idea of there is no such thing as an objective reality. and it's going to be compared to postmodernism in some ways. I suspect that's what's going to happen, but I guess we'll see. Naruto says, anyone going to buy the Trump Pokemon cards? Whose bad idea was that? What an awful idea. Why would Trump do that? Kaz, you heard it? Let us know how it was. How did you find it? I really have no idea what to expect. I just know I got sent this interview by a lot of people, and I knew I'd get around to watching it someday. Guys, welcome to Nitwits. Nitwits is a series I'm doing basically where I watch other people's content and I knit. I'm still working on the Mises Caucus shawl for today. I'm making some good progress. But Nitwits is basically a time, this is going to be a more relaxed stream. Like I said to people yesterday on the stream, I do anticipate doing a fair amount of Nitwits between now and the end of the year, simply because it's the holidays, man. People don't want to do serious stuff right now. People want to relax. People want to like take it easy, kick up their feet. And so maybe I want to relax too. I'm working really hard on a couple of projects behind the scenes. I don't need to think all the time. I can relax and watch a fake astrologist talk about the dangers of astrology and knit and banter about it and pick it apart and tell you what I think about it too. Like we can we can do that stuff here. But I will say this, I do have 2 serious streams coming up over the next 2 days, okay? We've had our dessert the past couple of days. We did Alex Jones and Nick Fuentes yesterday. Today we're going to do fake astrologer and Michael Knowles pretending he cares about this at all. And but tomorrow we're getting back to work for a couple days because tomorrow we are going over to my second YouTube channel. This is not going to be on my main YouTube channel, not the one you're watching right now. It is going to be on my second YouTube channel, youtube.com/actively unwoke. And I found a good one, man. This is a presentation. Yes, I have an episode of the West Wing recorded, Brie. I know I need to export it. It takes like an hour and a half. I know. I need to do it. I have not forgotten. I know I say that every time, but I know you're on my ass about it, and I promise I will, Brie. I promise. But I found a good one for tomorrow. I really, really did. This is a recent lecture, like within the past couple of months on a college campus. This is a real college lecture called Whiteness, a primer on the core barrier to racial liberation. We're going to watch that whole thing tomorrow. It is going to be an epic shit show. You know it's true. And that's the type of stuff that we do on happy hours on my second channel every Friday at 5 o'clock. We will also be drinking some beer. Go grab your beverage of choice. You know, my mother just sent my husband and I a package. And apparently, allegedly, it is a whole thing of peanut butter whiskey. My mother is a bad influence apparently today. So go find your own brand. If you never had peanut butter whiskey, man, even if you aren't a whiskey person, let me tell you what, peanut butter whiskey is delicious. Screwball is my favorite. It's really maybe I'll bust out the peanut butter whiskey tomorrow. Who knows? I do actually have some beer today that we're going to talk about in a second. But guys, join us for happy hour tomorrow at 5 p.m. on youtube.com/actively unwoke. That is my second channel. This will not be on my main channel. This will be on my second channel. And I firmly believe that people who attend happy hour on a weekly basis, they know more about the woke left than anyone else. I really believe that. They know more than the activists. They know more than the journalists. They know more than the commentators because we watch and listen to them in their full form, start to finish, the boring bits, the cringy bits, the oh my God insanity. We watch it all. We know what they really think because we hear it from the horse's mouth. And that happens on Fridays at 5 o'clock on youtube.com/actively unwoke. But I also have a hell of a socialism Saturday because guys, guess what? Our old friends at Haymarket Books just today, literally hours ago, streamed a 2-hour round table panel all about queer Marxism. We are going to have a delight of a time for Socialism Saturday this week. We're going to watch the whole 2-hour panel about queer Marxism. And if you have not watched queer Marxism or socialism with us on Socialism Saturdays, you're in for a treat. This is the most dystopian shit you are ever going to see in your life. It is a sneak preview of where the woke left is going. This is going to be a Saturday at 6 o'clock on my main channel. And I hope you join us for that. If you've never been to a Socialism Saturday, man, forget 1984, forget Brave New World, forget Logan's Run. We got it in real life dystopia right here. It is going to be amazing. And so please mouth that like button if you're going to join me for Socialism Saturday this week. We do them every Saturday at 6 p.m. Well, almost every Saturday on my main channel. And I hope you join us for that. And of course, if you want to support the work I'm doing, you can do so by heading over to activelyunwoke.com/support. And there are a number of ways you can do that, to include joining my Patreon, anywhere from $5 a month all the way up to $250 a month, depending on what perks you want and how much you like me on any given day. You can also join my Locals community. Locals is where I give the most interaction. I just have the best community on the entire platform. I really do believe that. That's going to be $5 a month, $50 a year. You can also make a one-time gift. You can also become a paid supporter on my Substacks. I've got a couple of different Substacks that I've linked to right there. All of my articles and stuff are free. I've posted like 3 articles this week on my Actively Unwoke Substack. I want to encourage everyone to check out. I've written about the 4 goals of the woke left. I've written about what the definition of woke is. I wrote about something else. Oh, I also wrote about how the socialists want everyone to be non-binary, and offered proof for that. That's some scary stuff that we learned from Socialism Saturday. But head over to Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Again, all the articles are free, but you can sign up as a paid supporter if you appreciate it. And that's what keeps me in business. And I really do appreciate the support, guys. Let me see if I can put a little ticker. Oh, no, I don't have a ticker for that, but I do have a ticker for my Substack. Hey, good enough. Good enough. All right, guys. Well, let's dig in. Oh, I have some exciting news. Before we get started, guess what? I was out doing some errands today, and I went to the beer store to stock up for tomorrow for happy hour. And guess what I found at the craft beer store? You're not going to believe it. Das Hydra is back in action. I found the last remaining 4-pack of Das Hydra. For those of you who have not attended happy hour, at the beginning of happy hour, I talk about craft beer a little bit because I really liked craft beer, and I teach about different selections, and I always have some options that I take people through. Das Hydra is my favorite, most favorite ever beer of all time. It is so good, and it is a sour ale with blackberry puree, raspberry puree, lemon puree, marshmallow, graham cracker, and granola. And it tastes like a smoothie. I'm gonna pour it for you. This is like the most girly beer in all of existence, but it's so good. Hang on. Oh, you guys are gonna love it. Let me show you. Look at how pretty that is. It is like a smoothie in the form of a beer. I know it's not happy hour. I know it's Thursday. I know we're not there yet. But cheers, everyone. Cheers. I hope you're having a great week. Now let's get down to business. All right, guys, please mount that like button for me. Let me get this set up. We are watching today 4 Nitwits. Former astrologist explains the dangers of new age practices.
Since I was 13. Something's wrong.
That's a lot.
I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just ready to die at this point. I'm bawling my eyes out. I just said out loud, Jesus save me.
Oh, of course.
And something happened.
You guys know, so before we even get into this, Jesus is actually a figure in New Age beliefs. So this idea that you are all of a sudden saved by Jesus and you had to abandon everything and become a Christian, and no offense to Christians, I don't really care what you worship, but like, this is something that Christians don't tend to understand. Jesus is actually a figure in New Age, quote unquote New Age. I hate calling them that, but I will for the purposes of this. He's considered to be an ascended master, which is a little bit different than like the Son of God, but not significantly different. There are many ascended masters, like Merlin would be an ascended master. Mary, Jesus's mother, would be an ascended master. So there are many, many different versions of that. But I just want to, say that right off the bat. Jesus is not insignificant in spiritual belief systems. Like Buddha would be an ascended master, like Krishna would be an ascended master. So it's like it's not like he's not there. So to say like all of a sudden Jesus came and spoke to you and you had to give up all your beliefs, that's already bullshit. This is my point. I already know she's lying because she doesn't understand that Jesus is actually an ascended master.
The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves. And sometimes in the stars, specifically when we look to the stars and compromise our free will and start doing a dance with the devil. That is what happens.
Compromise our free will? We never compromise our free will. This is going to be a shit show. I can already tell. Here's how this works, guys. Human beings always have free will. We make choices when we are in spirit form, little spirits floating around in the sky, wherever that is. We make choices when we decide we want to incarnate on Earth. I do believe we have multiple lives. We live, we die, we live again. When we're in spirit form and we're thinking about incarnating on this planet, we say, what type of life do I want to live? What type of experiences do I want to have? What type of lessons do I want to learn? And you get to create whatever you want. Sometimes if someone just lived like a life where they were like a king or something, or they had a lot of money, or they were a titan of industry, they might say, you know what, in this lifetime, I want to live in poverty because I want to learn how to pull myself up by my bootstraps. I want to have and this might sound weird and I understand this. I want to have an abusive family growing up because it's that experience of being abused as a child that is going to vault me to have success as an adult. These are the types of questions, right? And so we're not thinking about this in terms of like, what would you choose as a human being for your human desires? You're thinking about it in terms of your spiritual development and your growth. So you make those choices before you incarnate. Like, what type of person do I want to be? What type of parents do I want to have? Where do I want to be born? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The astrology that exists, the moment that you take your first breath, is going to be aligned with the spiritual choices that you make. But you can always choose to make different choices after you incarnate. You can always choose to deviate from the spiritual path that you created for yourself before you were born, because we have free will, and that can never be taken away from us. No matter what, it doesn't matter what the astrology says. Now, what will happen though if you deviate from your spiritual path? This is my belief. I think that life is going to be a lot easier for you if you stay on the path that you're supposed to be on. The minute that you start to deviate, life is going to get a lot effing harder. It's not to say you can't, but you're going to I believe you're going to have more struggle, and you're constantly going to run into things that are trying to boot your ass back onto your path. Like, this happens all the time. Like, say you take a job, but taking of that job gets you off the spiritual path. Well, guess what? You're going to do something stupid on a deeply unconscious level to get yourself fired from that job, so it boots you back onto the path. That's what I believe. It's not that you can't make different choices. It's not that you can't deviate from the stars. It's that life just gets a lot harder when you do it. And so you tend to end up back on your path because it's what, at the end of the day, your soul wants. Bree says, have you tried Great Lakes Brewing Company Blackout Stout? Also New Holland Dragon's Milk. Yes to New Holland Dragon's Milk. I think it's good. I'm pretty sure I've tried that Great Lakes one. I'm pretty sure. I love stouts. So I'm pretty sure I have. I don't remember it though. But stouts are some of my favorite. All right, let's keep going.
Happened to Angela Ucci, who dabbled in astrology,
Dabbled.
hosted a very
Exactly.
popular astrology podcast,
Dabbled.
To the Moon and Back, and then got into all sorts of weird, new agey, occult things. Reiki, manifesting, crystals, tarot cards, all the rest of it, until she realized it was all really, really bad and gave it all up.
Crystals.
Here with me is Angela Ucci, now the host of
Crystals
the
are not bad.
Heaven
Reiki
and
is not bad.
Healing.
Heaven and Healing. Heaven and Healing. Thank you for coming on the
Oh
show.
my God.
Thank you for having me.
We
Happy to be here.
We chatted a few weeks ago on my member block at the
Mhm.
Daily Wire, and I said, this needs to go way, way longer. I want to know way more about what's happened, because people write into me all the time, and I even have just friends ask me in my regular lives, Michael, what do you know about the law of attraction? Michael, what do you know about The Secret? What do you know
You
about
know nothing
the
about it,
crystals
Michael. I
and
can already
Reiki
tell.
and astrology and all this stuff
Nothing.
that I say seems really, really kooky and weird, but I don't know.
I always love it when Christians think that my beliefs seem kooky, because I'm like, bro, you think that a virgin gave birth. The party of science, trust the science, biological science, science is all there is, thinks a virgin gave birth. I hate to break it to you guys, to the Christian true believers in the chat. Virgins can't give birth. That is a weird idea. That is against the science. That is against biology. It didn't happen. There has never, ever been a single virgin that has given birth. That is not real. But you think my beliefs are weird? You think virgins give birth. Here's the thing, though. We're allowed to believe weird shit. I don't the only time I look down my nose at Christians for believing that a virgin gave birth is when they're looking down their nose at me over my spiritual beliefs that are also weird. Every single one of us believes weird shit in some respect or another. But to claim that my weird shit is weirder than your weird shit is just completely inaccurate.
Anything about it, you do, and you say it's not all just fun and games. It gets pretty dark.
Mm-hmm. So I was involved
She's not a happy
with
person.
occult practices for
Tell you right
almost
now.
a full decade. I had an extremely tragic death in my family in 2014. We touched on this briefly when we spoke. My grandmother died. I was on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean when it happened, and she was like my best friend in the world.
Savrits is back. Savrits. I knew this would attract you, Savrits. The divine light is who we are behind the eyes. I agree with that.
Single mom, did the best she could, love her to death, but she could only do so much. So grandma really kind of stepped in and took over with after school care, things like that. So we were very, very close growing up. She was my everything. Kind of in hindsight, she was my God. And when she died, it was absolute tragedy for me. It was the worst thing that's ever happened. And
so she didn't really believe the things that she says she believes.
I was desperate for any way to connect with her, to talk to her again.
This is already telling me, by the way, this person has never really practiced New Age stuff. This is all a fraud. I'm telling you right now. Because if she really had, she would know that her grandmother is always there, and she would be able to meditate to connect with her grandmother, connect with them in spirit. It's not even that hard once you practice it. Like, listen, and this is going to make me sound weird. I can connect with my grandparents. I know when my grandparents are here. My grandfather, I feel my grandfather here because it always feels like I have a light touch on my shoulder, like he's standing behind me and he's putting his hand on my shoulder. I always know when he's here when that happens. And I know that's him because I saw it in meditation. I experienced it very, very vividly in meditation. My grandmother stands behind me and puts both her hands on both my shoulders. That's how I know she's there. I can actually feel it. And so to tell me that you were a practicing New Age astrologer and you don't know how to connect with your dead relatives, that doesn't hold water for me. Listen, I don't believe that we ever really die. We just change form. Energy can't be created or destroyed. You can choose to incarnate as a human being, but your soul is always going to be there. Even after you leave your body, the soul of who you are is still going to be there. And so to say that my grandmother was gone, I couldn't connect with her, I'm sorry, that's just not true. Also, I'm going to say this. She looks like a miserable human being. I don't believe this person understood New Age beliefs, and I don't believe that this person is happy now. This person, to me, strikes me as a miserable human being, probably someone that just wants to be famous on the internet, which is why she got into a conversation with Michael Knowles in the first place and sold him this story that she was an astrologer. And I don't care if she had an astrology podcast. Again, like I said at the beginning, there are a lot of people in spiritual circles who don't know what the ever-loving F they're talking about.
And to experience her again.
She is still a miserable human being.
And I didn't know any better. All I knew was my pain. And I know now that Satan kind of capitalizes on trauma. Everyone I talk to that's coming out of New Age doesn't have the same story as me, but often there is a pinpoint traumatic moment where they've started to go down this rabbit hole. And so I went to see a medium. I consulted a psychic medium after she passed, and the medium knew things that she just really had no business knowing. It was astounding at the time, and I was hooked. I was just 100% all in from that point forward, and it just was a domino effect from there.
Who did she study with?
So the medium had cards, angel cards, oracle cards as she called them, and I bought that same deck. I went on and bought that same deck by Doreen Virtue, who...
Oh God, fucking Doreen Virtue. Doreen Virtue is a woman that made a lot of money in spiritual communities and then did exactly what this person did and said, Jesus, save me. And now she makes a lot of money on the Christians. Doreen Virtue, I'm sorry. Like, and I actually used to like Doreen Virtue's writings, I'll be honest, but like when she was like, none of this exists, like F all this, I'm gonna become a conservative Christian now, she like really lost a lot of my respect at that point. But like the fact that this person is saying that Doreen Virtue is her primary teacher, I'm already like bullshit. I called bullshit the minute that this interview started, but bullshit. This is not a real, like, spiritualist. Sorry. Savarets transhumanists say we need to upload to new bodies. I mean, well, yeah, I'm just not sure that's a good idea when you're having a human experience. I can see it from, like, a spiritual perspective, but I don't want to upload my human consciousness to a new body. That would be like being trapped in hell. I honestly mean that. Like, I'm not afraid of death in any way. I'm not in any rush. Don't get me wrong. But like, I'm not afraid of death because I kind of want to see, I want to experience what happens after death. I want to experience a life review. I want to experience being able to look at things from that higher level vantage point when I know I'm never really going to die. Like, uploading my human consciousness to like a new body or a computer, that to me sounds like the very definition of a nightmare. Jen says, I know my loved ones around me when I have an extra sense of warmth doing things they loved and we love doing together, kind of like breadcrumbs leading you. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you guys can connect with your loved ones. Honestly, just try meditating. Meditating, like just like think of their name, think of like happy experiences you had with them. You can connect with them. You can still talk to them. Nothing is preventing you from doing that. They're there. They want to help you. They want to support you. They want to love you. But you have to let them. And this is part of where free will comes in. If you don't want to connect with your dead relatives and you don't want your dead relatives to support you because you're afraid or you don't believe that you can or any of these things, you won't connect with them. But if you want to, the opportunity is there and they're waiting for you. They want to connect with you.
About 5 to 7 years ago, actually came out and said, I'm not selling these cards anymore. God told me that these are demonic. I can't do this.
Doreen Virtue's full of shit.
All of my inventory. She had books out. She was like traveling the world. She lived in Hawaii.
She's full of shit.
So much money from doing this stuff and just denounced all of it when Christ came to her. And so when I had heard that years ago, this is when I was really deep into all of it. I thought, well, she lost her mind, but it's kind of a full circle moment. I went
no, she just started grifting.
You had lost your
right, I had lost my mind. I was the kooky one, and so after I got into cards, I wanted to learn how to develop my own psychic medium skills. So I would buy books about that. And this is all kind of alongside of self-help, getting into like the self-help kind of culture.
Which she obviously
that
hasn't
just
done.
teaches you off the bat, you know, you are your own best asset. You. It's all like essentially narcissistic therapy.
No,
and all of
that's
these
not what it
books.
is.
So I'm doing that alongside
That's also
learning
bullshit.
about psychic mediumship and learning about tarot cards.
That's not at all what the books say. Now, I'm not going to say I've read every book on the planet because I haven't read every book on the planet, but I've read my fair share and I've worked with my fair share of teachers. She just completely bastardized what these things actually say. It's not about you. You're so special. You're so great. Me. That's not what it's about at all. It's about you believing in yourself and you, quite frankly, ignoring what other people want of you or other people's expectations to be able to focus on what you want to create in this lifetime. That's what it is. New Age beliefs believe that you are the god of your human experience. You are the person who is dictating your experience, whether or not you have a good experience or a bad experience, a happy experience or a sad experience. You are responsible for your experience. It's actually it is the very opposite of narcissism. People who say this is a narcissistic belief system just prove that they have absolutely no fucking idea what they're talking about. Because you don't just get to take credit for the good stuff. You also have to take credit for the bad stuff. You have to say, if bad stuff happens to me, it's my fucking fault. If I get sick, it's my fault. What did I do to cause it? If I get in an accident, it's my fault. What did I do to cause it? If things don't work out the way I want it to, it's my fault. What did I do to cause it so it doesn't happen again? What do I have to change about my mindset and my perspective and where I'm focusing my energy and attention and what I'm giving to the world to prevent bad things from happening to me again? It is the very opposite of narcissism. So, like, again, this woman does not know what she's talking about. Sorry. Savrit says, imagine how many imperfect doctrines there are. Oh, I'm sure millions. Millions. Yes, it's about acknowledging your own divinity and sovereignty. It's about saying you are in charge of your life. You're creating your life every second of every day. That is responsibility. It is not narcissism. It is responsibility. Psychology question. Is there legitimacy to the idea that Freudian transference could be what's going on with Meghan, Harry, and Diana? No, I don't think that. I mean, I suppose there could be, but I don't think that's what's going on. I think that Harry and Meghan, and I haven't watched the whole miniseries yet. I've only watched the first episode. I think that Harry and Meghan are trying to rebrand themselves. I think they're trying to build an empire by shitting on the royal family and by making themselves look amazing and perfect. And oh my God, we are just victims of the world. They're definitely trying to make Meghan into Diana. I think they all know it's not real, though. I think it's just a branding exercise. Oh, shit. Hang on.
And things like that. That spiraled into yoga practice and Reiki.
Oh my God,
I had
yoga!
also, after my grandma passed,
no!
decided I was going to take control of
Not
my health
yoga!
because I was very overweight at the time. I was only 21 years old and I weighed over 260 pounds. I was not well. And I realized I was kind of setting myself up on the same path as
Look
my
at Michael Knowles, like,
because
you lost
ultimately it
weight?
was her health
Oh
that
my
did her in.
word.
So I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm learning about self-help. I'm losing weight, getting healthy, developing this nice relationship with food and exercise, and also getting into spirituality. So this is all these moving parts. But the yoga was.
I got a new super chat. Oh my God, I was so glad to see someone who actually knows about astrology react to this. I suggested Michael Knowles and you actually did it. I was always going to get around to it at some point. Joshua would be cringing so hard if he was watching this right now, but I appreciate you guys bringing this to my attention. Ooh, the evil yoga. The evil yoga where you do poses and you like stretch. Oh my God. Do Christians understand how silly this makes them look?
Originally
yeah, exactly.
Physical wellness, like a way to kind of supplement my weight loss process. But that very quickly became spiritual the more I read about it. And then I became a yoga teacher years later.
Oh,
and
no.
As I learned about the history of yoga, that just brought me right into Hinduism and all those
Well,
concepts.
of course, because people think yoga is just stretching or something,
and
Yoga
but
is just
really it's a
stretching.
religious liturgy, not just the kind of liturgy of liberal white girls in the suburbs, which is what it has effectively become in
Indeed.
America, but it goes back much further, and it's a Hindu spiritual practice.
The word yoga literally means yoke. And so in that context, it's to yoke spirit. So it's an invitation for the Hindu gods to kind of come into your body. And a lot of the poses are specifically
Is she suggesting that everyone who does yoga is inviting the Hindu gods into their body to possess them? Listen, man, yes, is there a spiritual element of yoga? Yeah. Can you also just do yoga and have it just be stretching and push-ups? Yeah. It's like how people freak out about tarot cards. It's like tarot cards are fucking cardboard. Everyone calm the fuck down. They're paper. They're not going to hurt you. They're literally just cards. If you don't believe that there's a spiritual connection, then ain't nothing gonna happen by you touching a tarot card. If you are not a practicing Hindu, then ain't no Hindu god gonna possess you when you do a fucking what the hell, like a chair like tree pose or something like that, or like the warrior 2 or anything like that. If you don't believe in it, it's not going to work. This is part of the basis of New Age belief systems, by the way, which she would also know had she actually studied New Age belief systems. If you don't believe it, it's not going to work. It is all about what is going on in your head. If you don't believe something is going to work, it's not going to. If you do believe something is going to work, eventually it will, because it's based on your belief that that thing is going to work.
reenactments or paying homage to scenes with ancient gods and things like that.
And I have to pause you. For people who are going to say, well, that's crazy.
It is
That's
crazy.
insane. You think you're inviting all these spirits in. It's just yoga. I guess I would have to ask those people, hey, don't you think it's a little weird that in your physical stretches, as you are presenting these things to be, that you regularly chant and invoke ancient kind of Vedic or Hindu?
What? Listen, I did yoga for a long ass time. There was a period in my life, I need to get back into doing yoga. Yoga is fucking great. There was a period in my life I was doing yoga like twice a day. I have never chanted to Hindu gods or doing Vedic chants. That's stupid. I mean, I guess you can do it if you want to. I shouldn't judge if people want to chant those things, but you don't have to. It's not a requirement to do yoga. Jen says, like, based on the Bible, I'm going to hell just because I like going to Red Lobster. With any month that has an R in it, and because I like mixing clothing fabrics. That's exactly right. This is the same thing. It's like they ignore all. This is why I get so annoyed with Christians. It's like they ignore all the weird shit in their books that doesn't make sense. And then they're like, when you're doing yoga, you're actually inviting in Hindu gods to possess your body. Like, no, you're not, dude. You're doing a stretch. Calm the fuck down.
Utterances. Isn't that a little weird that you go
Yes.
into poses that are explicitly and intentionally spiritual? Which of us is the crazy one here? Because
You?
I'm just reading into this long-standing tradition. What
No,
it has
you're not.
already presented.
You're
always
perverting a
presented itself as
long-standing
doing.
tradition. You're
Right,
perverting it
and
because you don't
that's
understand
kind
it.
of a misconception a lot of people have. Even Christians that I talk to now say, well, what's so bad about yoga?
Nothing.
I challenge you, go into a yoga studio and try and say God's name. You can't.
Are
It doesn't
you
fit. You can feel it. When I was a
Are you fucking shitting me? You can't go into a yoga studio and talk about God? That is the stupidest thing I've heard so far. Of course you can. That is... This is the type of stellar reporting that the Daily Wire is doing nowadays. You can't go into a yoga studio and talk about God. Wow. I fucking can't. I cannot. Savrit says the idolaters have created the atheists. That's exactly right. Listen, man, I have watched a lot of dumb videos in my days. That is possibly the dumbest fucking thing I have ever heard someone say, and that includes absolutely everything that the socialists say on Saturdays.
Yoga teacher.
We are only 7 minutes into this. This is gonna take like 3 hours, possibly longer.
Toward the end, I tried doing it, and just you can just feel from the class. It's like,
Oh,
You're
you mean
not
you
saying
can
you
feel the
physically
energy?
can't utter the
You
word.
mean
right,
you
but
can
it's
feel
just-
the
no one
energy?
in that class.
it's
Wait,
it doesn't.
check this
People
out.
don't want it.
Right.
I would
Check this out. She's literally saying, I can feel the bad juju every time I mention God's name. Where do you think that comes from?
was even told, because I used to put
Huh.
yoga videos on YouTube as well, and I would try and say, let's let God's presence come into the room. Kind of just when I was trying to straddle the fence of both at the time. This was about a year ago. So I would get comments, people saying, "I don't like that word. Could you say universe?"
Yes,
it's the
because
whole-
I don't like
yes.
that word. Can you say Moloch, please? Can you
Right.
say Baal. Right.
So
That is because in these types of belief systems, there is not one singular God. There is God source, the one true energy, but then we're all part of God. We all come from God. We are all a little piece of God that broke away to come and incarnate as a human experience so that we could contribute our experiences to the collective consciousness so that God could better understand itself. You say universe because, like, it's not just one thing. God, source, the one true energy. It means the same thing. But when you're trying to insert Christian belief systems into like a more new, like, again, I hate the term new age, but I'm going to use it anyway, like a new age spiritualist group, it's not going to go over well because it's not interpreted in the same way.
the yogi concept of God is very much source, universe,
Mhm.
we are all God
Yes.
mindset. And alongside with what you were saying with the chanting and things like that, it's not just the
Hang on, Savrets. There is a position of the Most High. I don't know what that means, Savrets, but thank you.
chanting, it's the poses themselves. They're very unnatural. It's very different than just stretching.
Yeah.
So
If
No,
you want
they're
to stretch,
not.
you can do Pilates, right? There's
Yeah.
no,
They
there's no
put you
ohms
in a
and
certain
ahs in
alignment.
Pilates.
and so I
They
always
align your
say
whole
that
body.
yoga is not a physical practice with spiritual benefits. It's a spiritual practice with physical benefits. So it's just
So you got into yoga, you're a yoga teacher. You mentioned Reiki.
right.
I've heard this word before, again, from my kind of white girl liberal friends.
Mhm.
And to confess my ignorance, I have no idea what it is.
It's energy healing.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is, and when I say these things now, I feel like I just sound absolutely insane for having believed it so much. So it's essentially you were allegedly able to tap into the universal energy, universal consciousness.
We can all do
and
this.
how that energy is supposed to be all love and healing. And so
yes.
you are kind of the vessel for that energy to enter in.
Yes.
And you lay your hands over somebody on usually like a massage table, and you facilitate that energy through their body, and you move through their chakra system, which again, that kind of ties into yoga. So the idea is that we have these 7 energy channels in the body and the
There's
throat
more
and
than
the
that.
heart, and they all operate different things for us, like where our insecurities are and our self-expression, our creativity, sexual energy, things like that. And so, for instance, someone might say, I'm having kind of really bad cramps. Can you kind of clear that energy for me? And so you could deduct from that, based on where the pain is and the chakra associated, that, oh, you are probably having some sort of creativity block. Yeah, I'll clear that out for you. And so that's the idea. And you could use crystals to help facilitate that, because all the crystals, of course, have their designated
Crystals are not just a
healing
part of Reiki.
qualities, supposedly.
I gotta ask.
This is
Sure.
like, again, like I feel like I'm going to say this about 8,000 times before this stream is done. This woman doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. This is like, this woman read a book about Reiki or like a blog post about Reiki, and now she's presenting herself as an expert at. That's literally what this is. Like, I'm not the world's biggest expert in Reiki. I'm like level 1 certified in Reiki, but like I never went beyond that. But like, I know more about Reiki than this woman does. And like, yeah, who created the crystals? Who created the crystals? Did these just fucking appear out of nowhere? These are not just associated with Reiki, dude. Who created these? How did these get on Earth? How did this happen? Who put these here? God, who created the heavens and the earth. Who put these here? My God.
Does it work? Or even
It works
Does
when
it-
people believe that it
does
does.
it do anything?
Yes.
It does. It definitely puts you in an altered state of consciousness. And that's not just for the person receiving, it's also the facilitator as well sometimes. I would have really intense, because I would facilitate it and also receive. When I would facilitate, I would.
You access different brain waves. That's what it is. You're accessing different types of brain waves when you do it. Which, by the way, is not necessarily a bad thing. It means you're releasing resistance. It's the same with meditation. It is no different than meditation. You can do everything a Reiki person can do through meditation.
would get moments where my hands would get very hot if I was over someone's throat or something, and that was my cue that that needed extra attention.
Do you think there's a physical, natural explanation for that? Or
Yes, it's your
My
brain.
understanding
Brain.
is that it's supposed to just be the energy accessible to all of us.
Brain.
So we all, in a way,
That's true,
experience.
but
If
it's
you're
from the
having
brain.
creativity block, in a way, I am too. So that's why I'm able to recognize it. Because
No,
we're all
wrong.
one.
Well, I mean, that is right, but not if you're an actual
And
Reiki
to answer your
practitioner.
question in regard to does it work, it is a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound.
No,
it works
wrong.
until it doesn't. And you need more, and you need more, and you need more.
They can measure changes in your brain waves when you're doing this sort of thing. The connection is that it changes your brain. That's what it is. Your brain, everything that happens in your brain flows into your body. If you are having different sorts of emotional things going on in your brain, that is going to manifest itself in the body. Therefore, I mean, I don't know why this is so hard for people to understand.
Really, for me, would alleviate. It's like taking Tylenol. It would just alleviate the symptoms, but
or
not
any drug,
necessarily
right?
fix
It's like
the
taking
problem.
heroin, right?
Right. And I always say these things are spiritual narcotics, because that's exactly what they are. You get addicted to it. You get addicted to the highs. You know, you leave a Reiki session.
So how is it different than massage? You go to massage, you go to massage to get them to work out different kinks and things. And then eventually those kinks are going to come back and you have to go get another massage. Like, one massage is not going to suit you for the entire rest of your life. You have to go get multiple massages, right? It's the same thing with this. It's the same thing like going to the gym. You aren't going to go have one workout and everything's going to be perfect and you never have to do it again. It is like anything else. This woman is like getting a fucking haircut. Guess what, guys? You're going to have to get more than one haircut if you want your hair to stay a certain length, because your hair is going to grow. You're going to have to go back and get another haircut. It is the same fucking thing. She's treating it like an addiction. It's not an addiction. It's like anything else.
Wow, I feel great. I feel so refreshed. I'm cleansed. And then 2 weeks later, you have a mental breakdown and you're like, well, I guess this chakra's still kind of clogged, or I didn't cut these cords from my past life, sort of thing. There was always an excuse to justify why you needed more.
You believed in past lives?
Oh, yeah. I believed a lot of crazy things. I was from the yoga and the Reiki.
Millions of people in the world believe in past lives. More people believe in past lives than believe in one life.
I'm studying self-help. I'm getting healthy. I'm finally at a
the
place
entire
where
self-help
I don't
industry
hate
is now
myself when I look in the
demonized
mirror,
too.
because I had lost over 100 pounds. And this was about 6 years ago. So I'm still sad. You know, I thought I had worked through the grievances of my grandma.
King Peter of the chat is correct. Reiki, crystals, tarot, chakras, it's all just rituals and mediums to facilitate connection to and manipulation of life energy. If you can truly recognize that deep down, mediums become unnecessary. And mediums aren't necessary, guys. Shamans are not necessary. They're like, you don't actually need them. But can they be helpful? Yes, because like a lot of times it's like why you can't give yourself therapy, right? Even if you're a psychologist, you can't give yourself therapy because you're too close, it's too personal. And so it's helpful to have someone that's objective, that isn't bought into your bullshit. Because we all have baggage. We all have things that we're hanging on to. So, like, having someone that's an objective, like an outsider, can be helpful to help you work through your bullshit. But you can do all this yourself. It's like the same with like ayahuasca. Like, I can have the same experience in meditation that I have on ayahuasca, and I have. Ayahuasca facilitates it. Ayahuasca oftentimes will make it deeper. They'll make things more vivid. But is ayahuasca necessary to have that same type of spiritual connection? No, it's not at all. Because it's all what's going on in your head. That's all it is. Yeah, well, I mean, she does come across as incredibly ungrateful. It's like she really learned nothing. It's so depressing to see people like this, and then they get trotted out by Christians to say, "Why don't you teach everyone about your misguided ways?" When it's like she never really understood this. She never really embraced it. The objects are mediums as well. Well, everything is.
Grandmother the best that I could by getting healthy. I thought, I'm eating well, I'm working out. Why am I still so depressed? I'm reading all these self-help books.
Because you didn't actually do anything.
You should have seen my shelves. It was ridiculous. Why am I not getting
Just because you read self-help books doesn't mean you do things with the knowledge you attain in those self-help books.
better? I'm journaling every day. I'm doing yoga every day. I'm getting Reiki done.
I find the people who get into New Age and Reiki and who are really into yoga, they always seem to read a ton of self-help books.
Yeah, there's a
correlation.
I don't.
What's that about?
No.
A savior complex, a self-savior complex.
As opposed to
what the fuck? So you expect other people to come and save you? I don't read a lot of self-help books. I mean, I've written a self-help book. I have some self-help books. But my bookshelf is mostly filled with like workplace books and like spiritual books, but not self-help books, like just describing different things. This person did not like actually do anything productive. And you're telling me, oh, I read self-help books because I have a self-savior complex. Who else is going to save you? Why are you expecting anyone else to come in and save you? This woman is lazy, is what it is. She's lazy and expecting other things to do the work for her.
A savior.
Right. Everything is counterfeit gospel. Everything, all these practices in one way or another is a counterfeit gospel. And that is where I'm going to get into probably the weirdest part of my story, where I'm up maybe 2 or 3 a.m. one night Googling, why do I feel like this? Why do I feel like I don't belong?
Because you haven't done any of the work that you claim you've done.
I'm almost like an alien on this planet. And so I find information, journals from people saying, well, actually, it turns out you are an alien. So yeah, I literally believed I was an alien. They're called starseeds. And the idea is that starseeds come from...
The idea is that Earth is not the only place that you can incarnate, that there are other places that you can incarnate as well, and many of us have incarnated in other places. Do I think I'm an alien? No, I think I'm here having a human experience. Do I think it's possible I've incarnated on other planets that are not Earth? Yep. I don't really have much to say about that beyond that, because that's really all there is. But the whole idea is like Earth is not the only place that we can go to incarnate to have different experiences in the universe. There's all sorts of beliefs, schools of thought about this. There's also schools of thought that say there is no such thing as time. Everything that has ever happened or will ever happen is actually happening right now. And therefore, if it is true that you can incarnate in other places, could there be some sort of like echoey sort of thing where you think about being an alien in other places? I mean, maybe, I guess.
Another dimension, another star system, another planet, another galaxy. Like I was mentally ill, if you couldn't tell. So,
But were
Still
you
are.
mentally ill in, I don't know, some part of your brain was firing the wrong way? Or were you just deluded?
Or were you just indoctrinated
it
into
was
this
not as though,
evil
if you pop a pill and it
ideology?
fixes a chemical imbalance or something. You had just gone so far down this rabbit trail that it compounded
it
on
just
itself.
spiraled, right? Yeah, absolutely. So I'm reading all this stuff and it made sense to me because it said, you've always felt like an outsider because you are an
Yes,
outsider.
exactly.
You don't belong.
This is just
and
Christian
you
propaganda.
came
That's all this
here
is.
to help Earth. So the starseed gospel, as I call it, is that you are kind of a light worker that has observed the state of our planet. And
You were
because,
never that,
coming back
honey.
to
I
this
can tell just
idea
by
that we're
looking at
all
you.
one energy, the universe is all one. It's like, well, if this planet is out of whack, then that's going to ripple throughout the universe and create chaos throughout the universe. So we
No.
need to find harmony amongst ourselves. And
No,
so the light workers from
wrong. That's not what it is. What it is people like or beings, I suppose, helping with the slow, painstakingly slow evolution of the human species. It's not about you're throwing the universe off kilter and it's your responsibility to come here and zap fucking yoga and Reiki into people to help it. That's not what it is. Real, like, spiritualist beliefs are, like, much more boring than that. It is about slowly assisting in the evolution of the human species. That's all it is. So we don't destroy ourselves like morons.
different galaxies come in to Earth to ascend the collective. That's the narrative. And we do that with our healing modalities, Reiki and astrology. We teach these things to
Astrology is not a
obviously
healing
very
modality.
esoteric,
indeed.
but
Astrology is not a healing modality. Don't tell me this woman was an astrologer. Astrology is not a healing modality.
I guess I'm only half having trouble because I've gone kind of down weird rabbit holes too, which we can get to a little later. I've never thought I was an alien, but I've gone down pretty weird rabbit holes. But in that moment, so you're looking this up and, this website says, oh, actually, Angela, you're an alien.
Yes.
What?
No website says that.
How did you persuade yourself of that? Like, how would that have worked?
It justified my sadness and it gave me a purpose because I felt like I was meaningless. I didn't know why I was here. I wanted to die, to be quite frank. I was very suicidal, flirted with suicide in high school, on and off.
New
in
Age
college,
ideology made me
self-harm.
want
I
to
did
kill
all the things,
myself.
and it never got better. I was like 25 feeling the same way that I did when I was 15, despite all the work I was doing and despite how hard I was trying every single day to just pull myself.
She did this in her early 20s. Bro. Michael Knowles. I used to have respect for you, Michael Knowles. There was a moment where I thought you were okay. I thought you were like one of the few shining lights of hope at the Daily Wire. Any respect I used to have for Michael Knowles is gone completely out the window in this one interview. This is fucking propaganda. This is irresponsible. This has no basis in reality at all. It is a miserable woman with a podcast who is trying to grift off of Christians by talking about a belief system that she does not understand.
Stuff up by the bootstraps and feel good, and just wasn't ever really hitting and what I was really looking for, which I know now was God. But yeah, when I was first learning about the starseed thing, it was like, wow, okay, this makes sense. So I chose this life. I chose to be here.
Yes, that's
I
true.
chose this suffering.
Yes,
Because
you
it's
chose to
teaching
suffer.
me something. It's my karma that I'm working through.
Yes.
Because when I work out that bad stuff, it helps the universe
No.
with its bad stuff. It kind of
No.
doesn't make sense
Wrong.
because it's
Incorrect.
not real. So
Right.
Wrong.
and it's all kind of self-refuting because it's like, well, we're the mess, but we're also the cleanup crew. Like it just doesn't really match up. Like you're the knot, but you also have to untangle the knot. It doesn't make sense.
So you're not in control
because you
at
weren't
all,
a
but you're
starseed,
totally
bro.
in control of everything.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
No.
And
what are you talking
with
about?
the whole starseed
What are
thing,
you talking about? These people always think that just because something goes badly, that you aren't in control of that. You are in control of things going badly. It's based entirely on your perspective and your mindset and how you're focusing your energy and attention. If you are through free will, focusing on the wrong fucking things, guess what? Things are going to go badly. Your choice is, do you say, oh no, I must give up everything because yoga has led me to this evil place and everything is going badly because of yoga? Do you do that? Or do you say, I'm responsible for what I've created in this lifetime, and therefore I'm the only one who can fuck up this, or who can unfuck up this mess? You're responsible for everything. You're not just responsible for the good things, you're also responsible for the bad.
that just got me obsessed with space. Wanting to find my star family. I would do meditations and like walk through things.
Oh,
to
so she
try
had a Pisces
and
moon
like,
one year,
connect with
or a
those
Pisces
beings.
rising or something one year.
The star.
The star people.
Did you connect?
I should
I
check out her
had
YouTube
experiences
channel.
where I felt like I saw things and felt things.
She
like,
deluded
in my
herself
room.
into that. That's not
They
real.
were always like blue. Yeah, really, really strange. And I
Did they
don't
have a shape?
long like you like the typical, you know,
She's
kind
making
of
all this
alien that you
up.
see in a sci-fi
She's
movie,
like
but
totally
like
inventing this.
not scary, like light.
Sure.
But
What do you think that was? Just a hallucination? Or
her invention.
to be perfectly honest, a demon.
Yeah.
What?
That's my understanding of
No.
ghosts, anything of that kind of sort.
Demons do not show up as blue light. She's making, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, exactly. She wanted to be a starseed because that sounded good and made her better than other people. That's why. She wasn't a fucking starseed.
Don't believe in ghosts?
I don't.
There's a ghost in the Bible.
Is there?
So when Saul goes to the Witch of Endor, Saul has outlawed
hilarious.
necromancy, all the stuff that we're talking about right now.
Right.
And he goes to the Witch of Endor, and he says, summon up a ghost. And she says, no, I can't do that. Saul, outlawed it in the land. And he goes, don't worry about Saul. Him being Saul. And so she does. And it's a really curious moment because she says, oh my gosh, you've deceived me, because she calls up the ghost of Samuel. And it's a very interesting moment because it seems as though the Witch of Endor is actually sort of surprised by what she's done. So it raises the question, was she sort of just a fraud, like a dime store boardwalk psychic?
Like this woman right here?
Selling nonsense to people.
Like this
and then
fraud that you brought onto your show?
But regardless, she does conjure Samuel, and then Saul talks to Samuel. So we have at least one example of a ghost. So I don't know. A lot of times when people say they've seen a ghost, which has happened many, many times, I wonder if they...
happened to me too when I was little.
It did. So I wonder if they're hallucinating, if it's a demon, but I'm not totally sure there aren't ghosts too.
Yeah,
there are
it's not a hill I'll die on, but
because then you might become a ghost.
Fair. I just, with the alien thing specifically, I think that's the demonic kind of realm that we shouldn't really have any business playing with. And I mean, the Bible
aliens
says
or demons.
The verse that sticks out to me most coming out of New Age is that Satan himself disguises as an angel of light. And that was always
so all angels
what I thought
are
was
Satan.
coming to me. That was my spirit guides. That was my star family. That was my grandmother. You know, it's actually interesting because
she thinks that every spiritual connection she ever made is Satan. Christians, if you want to know why people don't take you seriously, this is why. This shit is why right here. This is why no one takes you seriously.
I had something attached to me for the past, since she died in 2014, that because I would call on it, I would say, please come, please come, please come, like hug me. Like I would feel hugs. I would feel something near me. And after my conversion, if you will, I felt it. I was in the kitchen by myself and I felt it come up next to me. And I said out loud, I said, God, whatever this is that's been posing as grandma for the past 7 years, in Jesus' name, get it away from me and never let it come back. And it hasn't been back since.
That's because you closed yourself off to the spiritual connection. If you don't want grandma there, grandma's going to leave. It's like what I said earlier. If you don't want that connection and you say, please, God, take this demon away, and you call grandma a demon, grandma's going to go, all right, well, you aren't ready for me right now. I'll come back another time. It's not like grandma's going to have bad feelings about it or anything. Grandma still loves you. Grandma still wants to support you. But if you're flat out calling grandma a demon and telling God to take grandma away, grandma's going to go, it's not a good time. I understand. I'm going to go do some other stuff and I'll be here when you're ready. Let me know, honey. Let me know. Just call me anytime. I'll be right there. Grandma's not going to be upset about it or anything because grandma knows she's going through some shit and she's lying to herself. And so, like, that's how that works. If you don't want them there, they have to leave. You have free will. That is what free will is.
So
You said you saw something like a ghost when you were a kid.
When I was a
was
kid.
that the thing that you?
No, I saw when I was a kid what I thought was my great grandpa. So I was very, very young at the time. And then
And it probably was.
That really spooked me.
Yeah,
So
it would.
I kind of like blocked that out. But I always grew up with this interest in the paranormal. So there's something there too. I always sought out scary movies for some reason. Now I kind of want no parts of them. Like, why would I entertain it even?
Yeah.
But I always sought out scary movies and like was
This is
so big on
correct.
haunted houses, like wanting those thrills. And when I reflect on that, I wonder what that was. Like, why was I
agree.
so interested in terrifying myself, essentially, or being interested in demons? But anyway, the starseed thing led me to space, which led me to astrology, which was really my niche. I fell in love with astrology because it kind of explained why I was the way I was, that alongside the starseed explanation. Because it was, oh, I'm such a sap because when I was born, the planet Venus was in the constellation Cancer. That explained. Okay, great. Like I started to have answers for why I am the way I am. Why am I so sad? Why am I more prone to these patterns? Why do my relationships play out in this way? Things like that. Astrology was starting to give me the answers, and just going in and like just deeper into myself, which was deeper into the occult essentially, because I just couldn't get enough of what astrology had to offer me.
What was your rising sign? I don't even believe she even knows astrology. I want to know what her freaking astrology. I want to know what her sun, her moon, and her rising sign are.
That we all chose to be here.
I'm gonna super chat into this woman's
journey,
channel.
Course.
Be
We
like,
all
what the
chose
fuck's
to
your
be
rising
here
sign?
to help the collective ascend, to help Earth rise into 5D consciousness and out of this stagnant 3D. And so
well, at least she got most of that right.
Chose our birth chart.
Yes.
We knew that these planets would influence our lives, and we chose that because we wanted to learn specific lessons.
Correct.
And we wanted to be able to
shocked.
teach specific things and help other people in certain areas and foster these sorts of relationships, whether it be with money or with people or with anything. So it gave me, again, that savior complex. That's what I always say.
That's your fucking
you
fault,
chose
bro.
It, but you don't remember choosing it.
Yes.
And apparently you chose a kind of crappy alignment of everything.
Yeah.
Why is it that Christians always think that the only thing that people would choose to live is a happy and glorious life? You don't make choices about your life based on your human perspective. You make it at a much higher level vantage point where your job is to learn different lessons about experience. I don't know why it is that conservatives always think if I got to choose anything from a spiritual perspective, I would choose to be a king and rich and have everyone waiting on me. And you think that do you honestly think that if you had to live life after life after life after life after life after life, that you would only ever choose happy and jolly experiences? That's going to get really boring really quickly, bro. It makes no sense. We learn by contrast. We learn by having conflicting experiences. One good, one bad. Okay, we learn what we like. We learn what's good. We learn what's bad. We learn what fear really means. We learn what depression really means. We learn when we learn what depression really means, then we can learn what love really means, because we're learning by contrast. Or we learn what joy really means, or amazement or wonder. The more you explore the darker elements of life, the brighter the good elements of life are going to be able to seem. But you only get to that brightness when you explore the opposite of that. Michael knows, I just don't know why anyone would ever choose to have a negative experience like you've obviously had with your demonic yoga. Like, it's actually not that complicated.
So it just made me feel better about my suffering, essentially. It was like I said, it was
There's
a
a
Band-Aid on a
purpose.
gunshot wound. I
No.
was miserable, but at least okay, it makes sense why I'm miserable. I'm supposed to be. I'm working
No.
through it. It's
No.
the process. And it's like that.
You are not taught that you're supposed to be miserable. She is making that up. You are supposed to learn so that you can make adjustments, so that you can live the life that you will find happy and fulfilling.
Interesting. Again, doesn't make sense. It's self-refuting, because it was always what's taught with these practices is that everything is a process all the time.
Yes.
But also you're going to achieve enlightenment eventually.
No.
So which is it?
Yeah, next week. It's going to be just the day after tomorrow. That's when you're going to achieve.
And
you are
it's
never
just-
going to achieve
when I look
enlightenment
back
as
at
a
it, it's
human.
crazy how-
Probably not.
I've just never grasped any of this in a logical, rational mindset. And it's ironic because now people think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I was going around saying,
Scott, great question. Have I ever heard of Haymarket Books? Yes, I have, Scott, and we're going to be watching Haymarket Books on Saturday. Don't worry, we've watched Haymarket Books several times.
I'm an alien, and that was fine. But now I love Jesus, and I've lost
You're
it.
totally nuts.
I'm a
right?
clown.
Were you at the time into any of the New Age guru types? I don't know anything about these people, but I'm thinking of Deepak Chopra.
Yeah, I was.
You were?
I was.
Who were you into?
I was into Deepak Chopra. I was into Louise Hay.
Louise, not Luis.
There's a teacher
Louise.
on YouTube, Yoga with Adrian, and no disrespect to her, but she was my yoga guru. Eckhart Tolle, who wrote The Power of Now and actually A New Earth. A lot. I had a lot
all of
of
the
names on my shelves.
All of the
for sure.
the big names.
The Four Agreements. It's one of the books.
Only the big names.
Who's that by?
I can't remember the name of the author.
Got
There's
it.
another interesting book called Conversations with God.
Yay!
By Donald Walsh.
That's a good one.
Or Wells, something along those lines. Donald
Neil,
something.
She doesn't even know the name of the fucking author. Neil Donald Walsh. I literally have it sitting on my desk right here. Neil Donald Walsh.
Wrote this book that he claimed he was channeling God and God was talking through him. And essentially the entire book is like refuting the Bible.
Yeah.
No,
and it's funny
not.
because it's like this, it's Bible thickness.
And God
it's Bible thickness. Hang on. I have a whole bunch of stuff sitting on my copy of Conversations with God. It is not Bible thickness. It is not. Hang on. This is awful. I have so much crap on top of it. This is Conversations with God. Conversations with God. See? You can see it. That's how thick it is. That is not Bible thickness. That is maybe 60,000 words. Now, you want to know what a book is that is Bible thickness? Hang on. What she might be thinking of, which is Conversations with God, is basically like a simplified version of this book. It's a much better entry-level book. Oh my gosh, I'm like spilling everything on my desk right now. Oh no. This is a sign that I need to clean my desk. What she might be thinking of is A Course in Miracles, which is Bible thickness. Much more closer to Bible thickness than Conversations with God is. And now I have to clean my desk again.
through this man, said, actually,
yes.
everything else was wrong.
He said, this was wrong. This is how it is now. Yeah.
No,
Wow.
that's not
And
what
I
it
liked
said.
it because
That's
it was
not
all
what it
about
said.
honoring your truth, which is the biggest thing with New Ageism is
New Ageism.
honoring the self. And I've realized
This is
that
why Carrie
New
Smith thinks
Ageism
I'm a
is
narcissist
everywhere.
right here.
It's in politics. Like,
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Well, there was
everyone's
New
that
Ageism.
self-obsessed.
the New Age lady, that explicitly New Age lady, Marianne Williamson, ran for president in 2016.
Ooh.
She was talking about astral forces and all this
Mhm.
kind of really
Mhm.
specifically New Age lingo on presidential debate stages.
Yeah, that's insane. I think Nancy Pelosi said something recently about Mother Earth and how powerful she is.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
Nancy, who pretends to be a practicing Catholic, though she
Mhm.
doesn't.
Nancy Pelosi is demonic because she said Mother Earth. Does anyone think that sounds stupid? Listen, there are fair criticisms to make of Nancy Pelosi. Saying Nancy Pelosi once said the term Mother Earth is not a fair criticism to make. That is not an intelligent criticism. That makes you look like morons.
Accept church teaching on
Mhm.
non-negotiable
Yeah.
central issues,
Right.
pretends to be at least.
Right. And I was thinking in the context of even abortions, because it's all my body, my choice, it's my truth, it's mine. There is no right or wrong because
This woman
I
is so
am
trying
the
to grift
author
on
of what's right or
conservatives.
wrong in my life
It's
and in
not
my
even
body.
funny
And that
how
is
bad this woman is
everything
trying
that
to
New
grift on
Ageism is about.
conservatives.
And transgenderism too, right? My true
Yes.
self has nothing to do
Yes.
with objective reality. It's just
Yes.
whatever I
See,
say
I
it is.
told
And I've
you.
seen how
I told you that was going to happen.
kind of the culture's obsession, culture, by the way, the culture's obsession with honestly just kind of dismantling God's order. Like, why is that? Like, there's got to be a reason for that. And Hollywood's obsession with the devil and how Jesus Christ is the only name we blaspheme. People never scream out Buddha when they're upset. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
oh, Buddha. Like, it's never that.
Buddha, damn it.
Yeah,
No one says
exactly.
that.
No one says that.
Right.
And no one gets triggered when you say anything about Muhammad. But the name Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
people flinch. It's almost like there's something to it.
This woman is going to become a conservative evangelical preacher. Mark my word. She's going to be like one of those people that's like preaching in front of a mega church, and it's going to be like kind of like a cultish mega church. There's going to be like rules to be part of this mega church where it's like, if you don't, it's going to be like Carrie Smith's church where they're going to excommunicate you if they deem you to live in unrepentant sin. Even though Carrie Smith can live in unrepentant sin and it's okay, but like no one else can live in unrepentant sin. It's going to be that kind of church. It's going to be like a cultish, like, you have to follow these rules, and if you don't, you are a tool of the devil. It's going to be like one of those types of church. I mark my words, 10 years, this woman's going to run a cult.
You know what I mean?
There is a group of people that gets a little triggered when you say negative things about Muhammad, but broadly
in a broad context, it's, you know, there's one above them all that is most mocked. They saw Kendrick Lamar recently with the
I don't think I've
on the
ever seen
cross.
Kendrick Lamar.
I saw something on Instagram where in one of his music videos, he's like walking on water. He's like on a cross. He has a crown of thorns.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or Little Nas X, he did
Right.
the whole video where he's
Can everyone
basically having
feel
sex with the
Christ's
devil.
love wafting
And
off
everyone
this
said
woman?
people are being extreme for
Can
that.
you just
but
feel
look,
Christ's
it's not
beautiful
extreme
love
because this
wafting
stuff
off of her?
gets into minds, and it's just a slow drip.
Well, there was a guy, he's the deputy monkeypox coordinator at the White House now, and he's taken photos of himself wearing leather pentagrams on his chest, and apparently seems to have a pentagram tattoo on one of his pecs. And you have to wonder, you say, okay, if I'm the crazy one because I'm noticing this, because I'm observing these really weird, specific satanic symbols, that guy's got to be way crazier for putting it on his body,
Pentagram is
right?
not just a satanic
How come I'm
symbol.
the crazy one for noticing? He's not the crazy one for doing it.
Right. Right. It also makes me feel better that even though I thought I was an alien, I was never the deputy of monkeypox.
You never want to. You don't want to be coordinating monkeypox.
Yeah. It's just everywhere, and I think it's really important to talk about for that reason. And a lot of people think I'm extreme. I lost a lot of friends when this happened because
I can't
ultimately
imagine
the
why.
common denominator of our relationship was sin. all practicing divination constantly together, whether it be a moon circle or Reiki or tarot cards.
What's a moon circle?
So my obsession with astrology was,
If you watch Nothing Remotely Controversials on Tuesday night with Joshua and I, you are now a tool of the devil because we use both astrology and tarot cards on Tuesday nights. This is why. Do you want to? Holy shit, something just occurred to me. Do you guys think that Carrie Smith went psychotic on me because I did a show on Tuesday nights about tarot cards and astrology, and Carrie decided I was a tool of the devil because she was getting into her cult Christian church at that point? Could this actually be the explanation? If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. But this is honestly just occurred to me because this woman reminds me a lot of Carrie Smith. And could it be a reality in which the reason that Carrie Smith went psychotic is she had to punish me for my satanic ways for having a show about astrology and tarot cards on Tuesday nights? It doesn't sound like it's impossible.
really centered around my fascination with the moon. A lot of the time, I said on my old podcast, I was enamored with the moon. Because the new moon was always supposed to represent like new beginnings and setting intentions. And then the full moon
Yes.
was always what I would
Letting
say on
go.
my podcast, the time when the moon is in its full illumination.
Letting
So
go.
it's kind of shining a light on everything that's blocking us from our intentions that we set at the previous cycle. And so now with the full moon, we can release that. And so the moon always falls in, it might be a new moon in Aries. And so Aries is supposed to be like the sign of beginnings and initiation. So if it's a new moon in Aries, that's a really good time to start a new business venture. So it just always, it gave like a criteria for my life, sort of patterns to follow. Again, kind of instilling
doesn't give a
purpose in me because I
criteria.
felt like I didn't have any.
It does not give a criteria. It does not say you have to do this, you can't do that. It says here is going to be the most productive way to spend your time and focus your energy. You can go in this other direction if you want. It just might not be as easy as focusing on the things where it's the better time to do it. But it doesn't tell you what you can't do.
And just a scheme.
Right.
Okay, I do this
Exactly.
month, and I do this.
Exactly.
No, it is
It's
it's
escapism.
not like that at all.
So the moon
Wrong.
circles, we would gather,
Wrong.
me and a group of girlfriends, we would gather every new moon and every full moon, and we would do just that, set intentions or release. And
This sounds to me like witchcraft.
like a coven,
Is
right?
is that what that is?
Essentially.
Holy
We
shit.
would never call it that because it's really interesting
Astrology is not
how
witchcraft.
even in the realm of New Ageism,
They're two different
you
things.
understand that there's
Completely different
negative
things.
energy and negative and demonic
Yes.
influence. Like, you know, why is it that every time we did Reiki, or every time we did a moon circle, every time I practiced with my crystals or my tarot, every time I did yoga, why is it you always have to pray for protection? Why is it you always have to call in an angel team? Why is it you always have to set
You
up
don't have to call in an angel team. You don't have
pillars
to pay
of
for
light
protection.
around the room? Like, why do you have to prepare yourself for the worst with all these?
Because if you don't, you might accidentally let in energy that you don't want based on your subconscious beliefs about yourself. You say, I am only subjected to the energy that is in my highest good because that is for you to have in your head. That's why you say it. All of this is based on what you think. It's based on what you perceive. It's based on where you focus your energy. If you say, I'm only subjected to the highest and best energy or whatever like that, you're putting that suggestion in your head. That's why. It's not magic. It's in your head.
Practices. It's kind of like the same thing with psychedelics, because that's
No.
also mind altercation.
Right.
Kind of the same thing. And you kind
I
of
wonder if
have to
Michael
set your
Knowles
intentions
knows
with
this
that
woman is a
too.
total fraud.
It's all these things that you have to be really, really particular
Probably doesn't
with. You
care.
have to follow all these steps or you could do it wrong. Like sage the room, because, you know, demons are scared of smudge. Definitely.
It's not.
And
Oh my God.
for people now who are going to call you crazy for
Yeah.
criticizing all this stuff, people call me crazy for saying, you know, actually people do practice witchcraft. And they say, Michael, you're crazy. What an insane thing to say. You did it. Like you did it. You
was my
saw
No,
it. You
she didn't.
participated in
No,
it.
she didn't.
So again, it's one of these where I go back to, why am I crazy for noticing it, but they're not crazy for doing it? They're actually doing it.
Well, the
She did
Bible has
not
the
do
answer
it.
to that. because Satan blinds the minds of unbelievers, and because Satan is the prince of this world.
Right.
And so, that's something else that kind of started to wake me up to the idea that there is theistic God, specifically the Christian God. Because in 2020, when everything went down, I was a seething liberal at the time as well. So, I mean, it's all connected. It really is, because you go to an abortion rally, I guarantee that girl who's naked giving the middle finger that says, "F you, my body, my choice." I guarantee you go into her bedroom, there's a mandala on her wall. Like, just
What is that, by the way?
Mandalas
just like
are
a-
satanic now too.
you've seen them. The tapestries with like the circles with all the flowers.
They're created by Buddhist monks. Are we suggesting that mandalas that are traditionally created out of sand by Buddhist monks are now satanic? This is the stupidest fucking woman that has ever been on the internet. I know that wasn't new agey and spiritual of me to say. I know I'm probably going to inflict karma on myself for saying that, but this woman is the stupidest woman that has ever been on the internet. And there are a lot of stupid people on the internet.
Yeah, I have seen that, and it's weird.
Yeah.
But I never knew what it was
They're just
called.
like they're just like sacred geometry kind of.
So it's funny though, when you said it, just from the sound of it, I thought, yeah, okay, I kind of get the idea of, and I'm sure she does, because people try to be conciliatory and nice and say, listen, a person's religion has nothing to do with their politics, and you can be a total
I
demon worshipping
completely
pagan,
expect conservative Christians to
and
be
you can be
jackasses. Yes.
Orthodox Christian, liberal, but in practice, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Michael Knowles is stupider for
that's what
having
I mean,
participated in this
in 2020
farce.
when everything went down. I was obviously had nothing but time on my hands when I was in quarantine, and that I hit rock bottom. Another flirtation with suicide in that time, but something that I did with that time was I started, for the first time in my life, begin to research things. And like, this is when the George Floyd thing happened too. So that kind of sparked.
Really? The first time in your life that you started to research things, but I was to understand that you had shelves and shelves and shelves full of self-help books that you just read cover to cover, and that is what led you down the road to Satan, was the self-help books, the hundreds and hundreds of self-help books that you and every new age spiritualist has. I was to understand that you had read all of those, and now you're just telling me that you just started to do your research? Okay.
Sparked something in me where I was recognizing inconsistencies, following a lot of Candace Owens at the time. And it's actually when I learned about the Daily Wire around that time. And so I got curious about
the religious right is repeating itself from 25 years ago.
And
that
what's
is exactly
going on in
what's
the government,
happening.
what's going on in Hollywood. Oh, maybe Trump isn't crazy, mean orange man after all, And I got really hungry.
Hang on. I'm going to say something that might sound a bit narcissistic and might be a little out of the realm of possibility. However, let me just throw the idea out. This woman left the left in 2020 after being a new age spiritualist and then suddenly finding God, and is obviously grifting on the conservative movement to make money for her podcast. Is there even just the tiniest possibility that this woman heard my story and is trying to do a carbon copy of me, except she's more deliberately focusing it on grifting than I ever did? Because I never denied my new age woo-woo beliefs. Is that possible, that this woman saw how much like conservatives embrace me and was like, I know, I left the left, or she left the left, I can do it too? Is that possible? Am I making that up? I'm saying it's a small possibility, but let's not dismiss it out of hand.
Hungry for the truth. And so I started to be more vocal about that online, like exposing things as I saw them come up and sharing really unpopular narratives, but true narratives. And that thirst for truth you know, I've always been someone who asks questions. I've always been someone who wants to know more. It's what led me to self-help. I wanted to get better. It's what led me to New Ageism. I wanted
God damn it, I'm
answers.
somehow
I wanted
responsible for
healing.
this.
And when my politics began to shift, my spirituality did kind of shift as well, where I understood,
I'm surprised Carrie
everyone's
Smith
obsessed
hasn't
with
been on
Satan
this
for some reason.
hasn't had
Like,
her on her
what's
show
that
yet.
about? If Satan is their obsession, there's got to be a reason. Because there's a counter to that. It's actually God.
Huh.
And so there's something there. And this is when I began to
Actually, Peter, here's the thing. Walkaway was a big movement among conservatives. Not among disaffected Democrats. Among conservatives. Big on the conservative right. I introduced a lot, an obscene amount of walkaway Democrats to walkaway. They came through me. And like the PragerU video, oh no, Carrie's here. Oh no, oh no. But that is the truth. Walkaway, and I'm not suggesting walkaway didn't reach any walkaway Democrats, because it did. And, you know, let's be grateful for that. But the fact is that a lot of people were introduced to walkaway through me, which I'm sorry. I thought it was good. I thought it was good at the time. I didn't realize what was going to happen. Go away, Carrie. You're not wanted here.
understand that there's a spiritual warfare. So understanding biblical concepts, but still with the backdrop of Hinduism, where I thought it was just duality. It's just the state of the universe is good and evil.
Stalking
and
me isn't cool,
it's kind
Carrie.
of like a battleground for who's going to win. You know, is it going to be this 5D ascension that I talked about earlier, or is it going to be like we just get worse and worse and worse because the evil energy, and that's the word I would use, the evil energy was winning, whereas the good energy was losing. Because I didn't subscribe
You're a
to what
false
the Bible
prophet,
says,
Carrie. You're in a
at
cult.
the time. So I at least began to understand
gonna get me
things
in
a little
trouble.
differently, understand that God was there, and that, again,
I'm not even doing it. It's going to
truth
get me in
search.
trouble.
I tell people a lot that if you are hungry for the truth, you're going to land on Jesus eventually.
Yeah.
Because he's truth.
Right.
You can go down all these different paths, but you're going to find inconsistencies everywhere else. And that's all I did for 10 years.
I took the long way too. You know, I was an atheist for about 10 years. Atheist kind of weakened to a sort of agnostic by the end of that. And so I attest to that. A lot of parallels, actually. I mean, I never was a part of any.
Again, I just want to remind everyone,
worshiping the moon or anything.
Jesus is an ascended master in woo-woo beliefs. Jesus is not irrelevant in woo-woo beliefs. If she hadn't encountered Jesus in her excessive study of woo-woo beliefs, that seems to me like she didn't try very hard, because it's not that hard to encounter Jesus. Oh, god dang, keeps doing that.
But I got into some pretty weird stuff and went down weird intellectual paths. And I would say basically, it's kind of 13 to 23. That was my real period of apostasy, atheism, agnosticism. I remember when you mentioned your grandmother dying. That was a big moment when you started to explore
This is
things.
getting out of hand.
I remember my mother died. I was 17 years old, and I was so I so wanted to talk to her that I Googled it. I said, "How do you talk to dead people?" And I know that you can't talk to dead people.
You can talk to dead people.
Or that's what I thought then. Now I wonder if you can talk to dead people.
Yes.
Or at the very least, you can talk to demons masquerading as dead people,
Right.
as has been attested to throughout all of human history. But I started Googling it, and it's very tempting. When you're so vulnerable and you're so desperate for something, you'll reach at anything. I mean, you'll go to any kind of crazy length.
Really?
And you know, on that particular path, I never didn't go nearly as far as
I
you
don't
did
know
down
if
it.
I want to see it.
I probably just gave up after not being able to, you know, hear spiritual, you know, voices and things like that. But you can really get into some really weird stuff.
More.
The fact that you mentioned this obsession with Satan is so interesting to me, because I sometimes if I point out, hey, why is that government official wearing a pentagram? Oh, Michael, that's no big deal. It's just a symbol.
Yeah.
I think, well, right, but the whole point of a symbol
it's not just
is
a
that
symbol
it
of
symbolizes
Satanism.
something.
Right.
And so that's a symbol of the devil, which seems to me to imply that that there is such a thing as a devil, or at the very least that this guy thinks that there's such a thing as the devil. And either way, it's pretty weird that he's wearing that symbol, isn't it?
And people are just very quick to write it off. Just like now, you know, it's seeping into schools and into kids' curriculums and even into their playtime. There's like yoga Barbies and things like that. And my one friend works at Target, and she was showing me pictures. It's like My Little Pony witch thing, like, you know, cast your spells. It seems so innocent.
Yeah.
But it's not, and that's the point. And again, it's that Satan masquerades as an angel of light. It's a deception.
So you're all the way into
being
this.
deceived.
But we still haven't gotten to the part where you get out of it.
Right.
How'd you get out of it?
Great point. So it's actually really funny. It started to happen around this time last year, around October of 2021. Late
This
September.
is very recently.
Very recent. It's been a really wild year. I actually saw you guys at Backstage Live last year at the Ryman, and I messaged you something about.
You messaged me?
Yeah, I messaged you something about how great it was, and then I was like, oh, it's a shame that Mercury retrograde made all the equipment bust because your mics kept going out, and I was like, oh, it's because Mercury's in retrograde. Anyway, well, to regress a little, that was
probably true.
Like I mentioned, you know,
truest thing she said in this entire show.
Last year I was 27, and I'm just sad.
She's 27.
I'm doing everything.
She's 27. She's 27. Does she look 27? No offense. I'm not judging. Or 28. I'm sorry. I'm not judging. I am 13, 14 years older than this person. She does not look like she's 28. And that says a lot about her mindset. Because, I'm sorry, people don't want to hear this. When you are a miserable person, you will wear that all over your face.
Thing. Still, it's just like pattern after pattern after pattern, just things I'm just never healing. Like I'm getting these little spurts of it's getting better, but then crash and burn worse. And it's just a hamster wheel that I'm on at this point, not understanding what even the point is anymore. So I had this total breakdown moment in my kitchen, curled up on the floor, like ready to just say, like, this is like, what am I going to do from this point forward? Like, I don't feel like this in another 10 years because I'm like rationalizing how, again, I'm 27 and I've been feeling depressed since I was 13. Like something's wrong.
That's a lot.
I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just ready to die at this point. I'm bawling my eyes out, and like you can tell I get emotional when I think about this, but
so she had a come to Jesus
I don't know
moment
why
when she was depressed.
I knew to do this, how I knew to do this. I've never,
and
no
we
one's
don't
ever
think
told
that
me
could
to
be
do
linked
this,
with the depression.
But I just said out loud, Jesus save me. And something happened when I said that.
Jesus is an
things just
ascended
started
master.
to change like overnight, and that it sounds bizarre, but that's God. My heart started to change almost immediately.
Remember how we've talked about how if you believe something, then that thing is going to happen? This has nothing to do with becoming a Christian. Just like when she said, Grandma, you're a demon, go away. And Grandma was like, all right, honey, bye. I'll come back when you're ready. She told Grandma to get the fuck out because she exercised her free will and didn't want Grandma there. Guess what happened when she said, Jesus, help me, save me? She invited Christ consciousness energy in, which, again, Jesus is an ascended master in this belief system. She invited that energy in to help her. Spiritual beings, God, that's a slip. Spiritual beings, angels, dead relatives, whatever, they're there to help us. They want to help us. They want to support us. But because you have free will, you get to decide whether or not they can. You get to decide whether or not you ask for help. You get to decide whether or not you believe that help is going to come to you. When she said, "Save me, Jesus," she asked for help from Jesus. And Jesus was like, "I got you, girl. We're going to work this out. We're going to fix this problem." She allowed Jesus to come into her life. This has nothing to do with Christianity at all. It was because she asked for it. And then she said, "Oh, I must have been wrong about everything in my life." She learned exactly the wrong lesson, by the way. What she should have learned is if you ask for help, the universe will provide you with help. Now, maybe Christianity is just what she needs right now in order to believe. I don't know, man. We all need different things. We shouldn't judge that, I suppose. Here's the thing. How would he know if she's a fraud or not? He should have known better. He should have known better. I'm sorry. You're going to interview someone on a show. Like, this is like the stuff that she's getting wrong is like entry level 101 stuff. These aren't even the bigger, more complex questions. It's entry level 101. This is nothing more than Christian propaganda.
And I want to mention this because I don't want to forget it, because I want people to remember how important it is to pray for people. My best friend, since we were babies, she's been Christian, and I've known her since, I don't even remember meeting her. We were so small. She's been Christian our whole lives, and she's been praying for me.
Barb,
the
only
whole
I get
time.
to declare
Like,
that.
2 decades of prayer that she finally saw come to fruition. So I like to share
No,
that.
you
with
haven't earned
people
it,
because,
bot.
I'm told a lot that it's very encouraging, because there's people that others know who they just never see coming out of whatever hell they've entrapped themselves in and finding God. So just wanted to touch on that in the background, I have someone praying for me the whole time.
Right.
Now, after I called out to Jesus, I can't explain it. I just wanted to know more about him because I felt different inside. It wasn't 100% yet, but it was something. It was something that was tangibly different than everything else. It didn't feel like a high like everything else did. It was the word I was using before I even knew
Because
that in the
Jesus
Bible
has
it
different
says,
energy.
God does not give us a spirit of fear, but of sound mind. The word I was using was sound. I was saying to people around me, I can't explain it, but I feel sound. Just, it's not like static all the time inside. And so
you had been on with all of these other kind of flights of fancy, you'd have this intense high. You're describing it with Reiki. You'd have this real high feeling. But what you're saying with this
because she
conversion to
called in a different
Christianity,
type of energy.
you felt normal.
normal.
Oh my
That's
God.
the difference.
Right.
Oh my
One
God.
makes you feel
Oh my
elevated
God.
and wild
Oh
and kind
my
of crazy.
God. Michael
The other
Knowles,
one,
seriously?
the craziest part of that is finally you feel normal.
Just normal. Yeah, just
She does
Which was
not
probably
feel
a
normal.
rare feeling for those
it
15
was.
years.
It was so rare. And I wanted to read the Bible because, that's the one thing I haven't done. I've read every other book in the world,
There
and
is
I'm
no way
seeking
in
out
this
more books to read, but this one's finished.
There is no way in this universe this woman has read the entire Bible. There is no way. I don't believe it for one red second. You're telling me all this happened in a year and a half and she called out Jesus' name and suddenly felt better, which is because she invited Christ consciousness into her life, which will generally make people feel better. Everyone should try it. Do a like one of the most powerful meditations I do is a Christ consciousness meditation. It's fucking great. You feel fucking amazing after. But you're telling me that this woman had a great epiphany, that all of a sudden she needed to read the Bible and then read the whole thing in like a couple of months? I don't believe it for one red second. The Bible, I don't know if anyone's ever read the Bible. I've read the Bible multiple times. The Bible takes a long fucking time to read. Have you guys ever tried reading the Bible? Like, there are programs that like will guide you through the whole Bible in a single year. It takes a long effing time.
Answers, but that's the one I would never touch because that's the patriarchy. That's that's man, you know, convoluting it. Like, you know, I believed all the myths without ever even researching them
Yeah.
about the Bible. I just, whatever anyone said about it, I'm like, yep, that's BS. Don't want to go there.
Paperback trash by Deepak Chopra. That's the
great,
truth. That's the
right,
word.
exactly.
But the enduring font of all culture.
Correct. Like, we have more documentation of the New Testament than like Plato and Homer, but that's not true.
Yeah, right.
This thing that this guy wrote 10 years ago
Mhm.
while tripping on acid,
Yeah.
this must be it. This must
Yeah.
be the answer to my life.
Yeah, my millennial friend who went to Burning Man. I'm sure he's
They
got
can
way
actually
more
both
insight
be
than Isaiah,
true.
right?
They can actually both be true. The Bible does have truth in it. The Bible is a nice, helpful guide for how to live life. But the Bible was written by man. You think that book is infallible? I've got a bridge to sell you.
It's just insane, the things I believe. And I feel so sorry for that version of myself. And
It's okay,
I
honey. We
tease
feel
and, you
sorry
know, we
for
laugh.
you.
I do. My heart
We feel
breaks for
very
people that are deceived
my
by
hate
this, and
breaks
people
for
that might
you.
watch this and think like, that girl's a lunatic. Like, probably have turned it off by now. But
You
my
say, no,
heart
correction.
breaks.
I
God,
was a
she's so
lunatic.
annoying.
Exactly, because I was there, and I used to think my best friend, for instance, oh, she's too rigid, she's too this, she's too that, she's boring. Like, she'd come to a party, maybe she'd have a drink, I'd want her to drink more. You know, I'd always get us in these bad situations growing up. Like, I'm the one thrill seeking, I'm the one wanting to do all the bad stuff, she's the one wanting to be normal,
Moderate.
and moderate and conservative. And just, anyway, I got my hands on a Bible. I got two in the same day, actually. It was kind of funny how that happened. I went to church with my best friend. She took me for the first time, and it was very unlike the church I had remembered growing up, because I went to church a couple times, Catholic, when I was very small. I went to Catholic school for a little bit when I was younger. Nothing landed. I was bullied. A priest screamed at me. It's a long story.
Yeah, many such cases. I always like to say that, especially from the era that we grew up in, I think it was a great blessing that I didn't go to Catholic school, because I'd almost certainly be an atheist to this day, you know, rather than I went to all these kind of liberal public schools. So of course now I'm a Catholic. That's the way it works.
That's funny. Yeah. I went to this church with her, and I was just enthralled with the way the pastor was speaking. He was saying things I'd never heard kind of a religious, if you will, figure say before. He was talking about the state of the world. Just talking about everything that,
you know, I used to Jen's point here, is there a new matrix pill called the grifter pill? When I red pilled, and you know, I mean, my story was completely real. My story happened. I'm the most consistent bitch on this platform. Everything I said happened. But when I red pilled, I had so many people come out of the woodwork saying, you're faking, you're a Russian bot, this is all to grift, blah, 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 blah. And I was so confused at the time, because I was like, no, my story was real. And I want to help other people wake up. I was really trying to do the right thing. And because I really did want more people to wake up. I still do want more people to wake up. But I didn't understand at the time why everyone was accusing me of being a fake or being a phony or being a grifter or any of that. But now I completely understand. I completely and totally understand why people would do that, because there are so many women like this, or like any number of other people, that are grifters. They're blatant grifters. They're just trying to say what they're not interested in waking people up. They're not interested in helping or fixing things or anything like that. They're only interested in advancing their profile to make money by being an entertainer or a media personality. So I get it now, but I really didn't understand it then.
Just talking about how the corruption is the way it is because everyone's serving. You can only have one of two masters. It's either God or the other guy. Like, there's no other option, because even if it's yourself, well, if you're a slave to your flesh and your desires, you're thus a slave to sin, and we all know who loves sin.
Right.
So
that
it's
devil.
just,
yeah, it's something that I think even a lot of conservatives, and especially libertarian flavored of the conservatives, kind of
Conservatives are not
misunderstand.
libertarian.
Because we talk about freedom these days, it's just you do
You
whatever
are not
you
a
want.
libertarian.
But that isn't it's certainly not the Christian understanding of freedom, right? The Christian understanding of freedom is that it is not the ability to do whatever you want, but the right to do what you ought.
Yes.
Because, as you cite, the man who sins is a slave to sin. And so if you use your freedom to shoot heroin or look at porn or do whatever, any kind of vice that there is,
Right.
you're going to lose steadily your ability to resist that temptation, and you become a slave.
And it's just so interesting, that paradox that you mentioned, because, you know, I had thought, again, the misconceptions about the Bible, oh, it's controlling. Like, why would I ever want to follow a God that tells me what to do? Why would a God that is love ever do that? Because my understanding of God was this pantheistic God of source, and we're all God, and we all have God within us. And so I didn't like it. It's really what it was. It was never the basis of, is this true? I didn't like it, because
There are no such thing as libertarian
and that's what
conservatives.
New
I'm
Ageism
sorry,
is.
Peter. I
It's,
disagree with you
want
on
to
this
feel
point.
good now. So
Well, everything you're talking about, you're focusing on the subjectivity of it all, on just how you're feeling, and I think you're rightly observing that it's all just total self-obsession.
It's almost like
and
we
the reason
believe in no.
everyone who's into all these
It's
things.
almost like conservatives, when it comes time to preach Christianity, forget that they also preach individualism. If you want to be a Christian, fine, but don't deny that you preach individualism. Individual liberties are individualism. Conservatism, Peter, is not libertarianism. Conservatives do not believe a lot of the things that are literally in the platform of the Libertarian Party. Conservatives who believe they're libertarians are, quite frankly, just as big of a problem as former New Age people who didn't know what they were talking about and now pretend to be Christians. Now, if conservatives who have some libertarian tendencies want to acknowledge that they're not libertarians, fine. But the fact of the matter is that conservatives do not believe in the vast majority of things that are literally in the platform of the Libertarian Party. This is provable.
They always have a ton of self-help books because they're much less interested in the truth than they are in themselves.
and it's narcissistic spirituality.
Yes, but my question is, and it gets right back to Mercury being in retrograde, why our microphones didn't work. Is there an objective reality
No.
to these things?
No.
Whether we're talking about the Reiki heat,
I told you
or
this was
whether
going
we're
to come up.
talking about
No.
Mercury being in retrograde and screwing up my production equipment. Is there something to that, even outside of our own delusions and the narratives we tell ourselves?
There is no such thing as an
I
objective
think,
reality.
Yes. I don't think it would be in the Bible if it weren't. If God didn't know what the dangers would be, there wouldn't be a warning label on it.
Because he's not saying don't consult astronomers and necromancers because it's just a dumb, stupid waste of time, right?
Right.
I think he's saying don't consult astrologers and necromancers because there's an actual danger here
Yes.
of compromising your free will or whatever, talking to demons.
You can't compromise your free
real.
will.
I mean, and that's
your
the
free
draw
will
to
is
it. And
absolute.
I say this all the time, is that there's just enough truth to get you hooked on the lies forever.
So where is the distinction? If you are saying that there is something to, the placement of the stars into how things are working on Earth, which we know is true in as much as we know that the moon has certain physical effects, depending on its placement on tides or on the Earth, right? And we know that's a very literal physical example of something in a very limited way. But then even from the Christian perspective, we believe in providence, we believe in history, we believe in a divine order to the universe. We believe in coincidence, and in coincidence very often not being mere happenstance, but in being part of God's plan. Things happen for a reason in God's good time. That's a very Christian
Conservatives do not dictate Libertarian Party platform. I disagree with you on this, Peter. I'm sorry. I really, 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 I do not believe there is such a thing as conservative libertarians. There are conservatives who believe they're libertarians. Those conservatives tend to have absolutely no idea what libertarian actually is. And I know because I've learned from some of the most committed libertarians in the world. I'm not saying I'm the end-all be-all of knowledge on this, but I'm saying in libertarian communities, They are nothing like conservatives at all. They do not believe the same things as conservatives. We're talking about real libertarians now, not just in New Hampshire, but all over the place. They don't believe that conservatives are any different than Democrats. Conservatives can believe whatever fantasy they want about being libertarians. They're not libertarians. They don't understand it. I'm sorry. We disagree. And I appreciate you, Peter, but I think you're wrong on this one.
But there's a ton of overlap between that and, the way the stars are positioned.
Right.
So what's the distinction between the truth of astrology and all the rest of it and the lies that go along with it?
Well, ultimately, it's all kind of determined by man, by fallible man. I mean, all of the whole backdrop of astrology is really heavily based in Carl Jung's psychology. Astrology is astropsychology. So
thank you for calling out Carl Jung. I hate it when conservatives get really into Carl Jung.
No, he was an occultist also.
Could you give a little background for people? Know the name,
I don't have
but they don't.
much, but I know he was an occultist, and he had
Jung is better than Freud every single day. Jung used tarot cards. Why she's saying that Jung is an occultist is Jung did use tarot cards. Tarot cards, by the way, are nothing more than archetypes. I cannot believe there was a time in my life when I actually had the most minimal amount of respect for Michael Knowles and the Daily Wire. I was deeply misguided. Oh my fucking God.
Helena Blavatsky, she was kind of like one of the mothers of New Ageism, because New Ageism isn't new. That's just kind of like the rebranded term for Satanism.
No.
But she herself was
incorrect.
A Luciferian, and she said that Lucifer is kind of like the pinnacle of liberation.
Yeah. So Lewinsky said the same thing.
So these are the people that are all connected with one another.
Oh my God.
And so astrology is taking
this is so awful.
Carl Jung's teachings as a man who's connected with these kinds of people, or these kinds.
Astrology was around for centuries before Carl Jung was even born. What the fuck are you talking about? Astrology is taking Carl Jung's teachings. How do you think the wise men in the Bible knew where Jesus was going to be born? Because they looked to the stars. Astrology is literally written about in the fucking Bible. This is, oh my God. Exactly, Michelle. Exactly. We said it at the same time. I wonder how the three wise men found Jesus. How was that possible? Fucking Carl Jung and influence astrology. Are you shitting me? God, thank God Joshua didn't watch this. Joshua would be incredulous about this entire thing, and I would not be able to yell in the same fashion if Joshua was here. Astrology goes back millennia. Long time. Before the birth of Christ.
Of people are following his beliefs and vice versa. So you have to look at the source first of all. And
you knew it was a lie because I told you, right?
Because people try and fight me on it. Well,
fuck Michael Knowles.
Because I tried to do this too. When I first started to come around to Jesus, I wanted to so badly keep my astrology. And so I was like, okay, well, exactly what you just said. Well, God put the moon there. God put the stars there. God put the sun there this way. God made me born this way. Because I was at that point able to let go of this narrative that I came here to do it. It was, oh, okay, God gave me my birth chart. So I was trying really hard to reframe Christianity. And so you can see it's still like self-obsessed narcissism, because I think I have the answer still. I'm going to rebrand Christianity as
could it possibly be, sweetheart, that it has nothing to do with spirituality at all? Could it possibly be that you're just a narcissist and you think that everything is about you because you don't understand what you're talking about? Could it be that you just have mental health issues that led you to being miserable your entire life because you didn't do a smart thing like, I don't know, go to fucking therapy? Could it be that your underlying mental health issues are what led you to wrongfully interpret basically every single aspect of any spiritual belief system that you studied? Could it be that you're really just still a narcissist and you think the entire world revolves around you, which is why you have the gall to go on this show talking about Christianity as though you know what it is when you just joined it like less than a year ago? Could it be that you are actually the problem here and that you need to go to therapy for like to manage the obvious personality disorder that you have? I don't want to get in the business of like diagnosing every single person in the world with a personality disorder at all. I don't think that's fair. But my God.
Astrologer and bring God into the forefront. Like my intentions were good, but I tell people all the time that saying is true. The road to hell is paved in good intentions. And I had that. I mean, for the record, I think most people in New Age do. I was a sad girl, just wanted to feel better and help other people feel better too. And that's 90% of the people I knew, that's the same thing. They're not bad people. They're just heavily deceived and thus children of wrath, unfortunately. So
they're children of wrath.
be the Christian astrologer and start teaching through that lens. But the thing is, you either believe what God says or you don't. And it got to a point where I was in Isaiah 47, where it talks about astrologers, you know, bring them forth. If you think they can save you, go ahead and watch them burn in their own fire because they can't save themselves. So how are they going to save you? And when I read that, something, because the Bible's alive, it speaks to you, it convicts you like nothing else can. And when I read those words, the Holy Spirit just came over me, and it was like,
you're
I
not
can't
wrong,
do
Stevie.
this anymore. Like I can, but it's not what God wants me to do. He's
great point. I didn't even thought of Crowley.
He doesn't want me to practice divination. That's exactly what it is. It says in Deuteronomy
Astrology
18
is not divination.
You're an abomination in the Lord's eyes if you're doing that. I don't want to be an abomination.
Astrology is not divination.
It just made me feel so ungrateful and disobedient.
Oh yeah, you're definitely grateful now,
It was
sweetheart.
kind of like, you know, when you're like a teenager and you
feel
rebel
the
against your
gratitude.
parents, and then one day you're in your 20s and you're like, oh, they were kind of right. Is like that same sort of feeling.
It's exactly like that.
Right. It's like, oh, they weren't letting me out past curfew, not because they hated me or wanted to bully me, but because they wanted to protect me. And so coming around to that idea of God, kind of like that roundabout way, as we talked about earlier, of how all these rules are there, and I don't like the rules, but I recognize now that true love has boundaries. And that's why God tells us to stay away from certain things and to embrace other things, because his love for us has boundaries, and he knows how we are, obviously, because he made us. So he kind of sets us up with the perfect manual for life, honestly.
You think about marriage, which is the fullest sacramental expression of love that you and I can find in this world, right? And marriage is nothing if not limits. Antonin Scalia made this point
really
jokingly about
that explains so much about the conservative mentality
that
right there.
Created same-sex marriage, and he mocked Anthony Kennedy's opinion, which established same-sex marriage, because Kennedy had said that it was this important that same-sex marriage was this important liberty that would expand the right to intimacy. That I don't know where the right to intimacy is, but he says he found that somewhere in the Constitution. And Scalia said, I don't know where the right to intimacy is, but even if we had one, I assure you, marriage constricts rather than expands the right to intimacy. Ask the nearest hippie. Meaning, when you get married, you say, okay, I'm not going to sleep with other people. I'm only going to sleep with this person for the rest of my life. And so it seems like a restriction, but really it is a liberation.
Indeed.
It is a liberation from your base desire.
This is explaining so much about the conservative mindset. I can't even tell you. Emily, thank you for the super chat. She looks so lost and unhappy. I don't believe Christianity has made her happy or given her hope. No, it hasn't. It hasn't at all. And I think, who was it? Someone said something in the chat. Hang on. Shayna says, what's going to happen when her Christianity doesn't solve her problems the way she wants it to? because Christianity ain't gonna solve her problems. She is not a happy person. You can tell just by looking at her. I don't want to look at her YouTube channel, but I feel like I have to. Not for today. I don't even know if we're gonna make it through this whole stream. We've already been going 2 hours. We're only an hour through this.
Desires and a liberation from your kind of feeding of the appetite constantly. And it really does allow you to elevate and to pursue other things and to share your love and to will the good of the other person and to give entirely of yourself to your spouse. And so this struggle with liberation I find so interesting because you know, the catechism says that the reason that you shouldn't consult astrologers and necromancers is because it is an attempt to gain power over time and history and ultimately other people. That where you are going, you're trying to find out the future in the stars. You are trying to cheat. You know, you're trying to get an unfair advantage to give yourself more power.
Yep. And
it's not what it is.
Something you mentioned that I really wanted to talk about actually is how, because you said the right to intimacy for gay marriage, right? Yep. So people that are unbelievers, and now that I'm on the other side of it, I see it so clearly, the way other people try and converse with me or the things that people say
to
kind of push back on what I'm now talking about.
You can hear Michael Knowles in the background going, yeah, honey, it's okay. It's okay. And I can't even tell you how many times I had like this similar conversation with conservatives where they would come up to me and be like, Carlin, now that you've woken up, don't you see that we were right about everything? I cannot tell you how many times I've had this conversation where I was like, yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that you guys were okay about, but like, I wouldn't say you were right about everything. Like, no. Now that you've woken up and you understand, we were on the right all the time. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Every fucking time I went to an event. Every time. And I'd kind of have to like, okay, yeah, all right. Just to like play nice. But man, was that shit annoying. And she just did the same thing. Like, now that I'm on this side of it, I understand. And Michael Knowles is in the background going, yeah, you understand, don't you? It's like, oh my God.
Out is, well, we have rights to this, that, you know, believe what you want, you know, whatever, morals and things like that. So what's interesting with unbelievers is that they kind of have to borrow from the Christian worldview in order to make their claims.
Yeah.
Why is that? It's just because if you want to talk about rights, well, if there are things that we are kind of entitled to, thank you. If we're entitled to certain things, if we're prescribed certain things, then there's someone prescribing that.
Yeah.
So
where do the rights come from?
Where do the rights come from?
They don't come from me.
Like that's written on your heart from someone. And so it's a great point. Yeah, it's something that I see a lot is how they have to borrow from the Christian worldview in order to make their claims true. But
yet they then wish ultimately to liberate themselves, not only from the moral law, but from the moral lawgiver. And it reminds me when you talk about this liberation babble that keeps going around, in the acknowledgments of Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, who is one of the most famous leftist organizers in American history. He dedicates his book to all sorts of rebels. And then he has a little acknowledgement at the end of this. And he says, and I can't forget to acknowledge that first rebel, Satan, who lost himself heaven, but won for himself his own kingdom. And you see that language of liberation. I mean, you actually even see it in Paradise Lost, right? When Satan falls from heaven, he's in hell, and he says, well, forget about that. Forget about heaven. The mind is its own place and can make a hell of heaven and heaven a hell.
That's something else with New Ageism, is that we've created our own hell. So
yes,
it's kind of our job to get out of it.
Yes.
But then it goes back to lacking logic, because if we're all God and God is love and the universe is love, then how do we also have these issues that we have?
Because you have free will. Human beings have free will. That's why. You have all these issues because you can make whatever choice you want to make. And if you don't feel worthy of love, then you're not going to have love. If you don't feel worthy of money, then you're not going to make money. If you don't feel worthy of support, you're not going to have support. If you hate yourself because you can use free will to hate yourself, then you're going to be surrounded by a lot of people telling you what a shitty human being you are because you hate yourself. That's why. This person never understood what she read in those books. Never understood what she was practicing.
Have to work through to get back to love.
Yeah, right. If
you can always
everything's
exist. You can. Sorry, I keep pausing, but like you can always exist in love. Every single person can make the choice right now to only and exclusively act from a place of divine love. And if we all made that choice right now, the world would be a completely different place. We can make the choice right now in this world that we have more than enough food to feed everyone in the world, because we do. We have more than enough for everyone. And if every single person in the world made the choice to say, you know what, we've got more than enough food for everyone, there would never be any hunger in this world again. We could all make the choice right now to say, you know what, we have more than enough money for everyone. And we make sure we find ways to get people who need it money. We could all make that choice right now because we do. We have more than enough of what we need in the world. The problem is that most human beings do not act from a place of love. They act from a place of fear. They say, we don't have enough food. I have to take more for myself. We don't have enough water. I have to take more for myself. We don't have enough money. I have to take more for myself. And people have the right to do that because we have free will. We can do whatever the fuck we want. But don't tell me that this is all so confusing and contradictory, because if God was really love and all these things, then everyone would just be perfect and rainbows. No, because we have free will.
Totally perfect. There's no such thing as original sin. It's all good, man. But we know that the world is fallen and broken.
Mm-hmm.
And we are part of the world, and we are fallen and broken. So how are we supposed to fix it?
Mm-hmm.
You make the choice to.
Mm-hmm.
Because I get the original sin version of the world. I get
You make
that
the choice to.
before the fall, right, the whole Christian story. Before the fall, the world was perfect, and then man, because he has freedom, exercised that freedom in a incorrect, in a wrong and abusive way, and this led to sin and death pervading the world, and man's kicked out of the garden, and we inherit that, this broken nature, as a part of original sin. This is just an observation. Find me the man who does not have this, and I'll show you a liar. I'll be pointing right at you.
Mm.
So we just observe this fact of the world, and therefore man is in need of a savior, and this creates a basically unsolvable problem unless God himself sends his only begotten son to die, such that those who believe in him might not perish but have everlasting life. I can get that. You might say, I don't believe any of that crap, Michael, but that story makes sense.
Yes.
I don't get, to me, the really outlandish accounting of it all is that, no, actually, secretly, everything's perfect. You just got to get your chakras a little bit more at the right angle, man.
That is literally not what the explanation is, Michael. And you sound like a goddamn fucking moron when you say it that way. The explanation is human beings have free will. They can make whatever choice they want. If they want to live fucked up, miserable lives, as this woman clearly wants to live, then she has the absolute freedom to live a fucked up and miserable life in which she flits from belief system to belief system to belief system and still waits for things to solve her problems, and nothing ever will, because she hasn't taken responsibility for her own life. This is by far the stupidest thing that Michael Knowles has said yet.
And then it'll all be fine.
Exactly.
That to me seems far more
That is
laughable than the
not
previous
what the
story.
belief system is.
and I agree with you,
Congratulations. You don't understand what you're
especially
talking about.
with the new eyes to see that I have, because going back to what you said, the man saying it's our, our right to intimacy for gay marriage. Okay. So what you're acknowledging, therefore, is that there is a truth. It's not only like the moral lawgiver, but you're acknowledging that there's a truth that we have a right to live within. And so in that context, someone might say, well, yes, but it's my truth.
Mhm.
And so this is very popular dialogue amongst New Agers is my truth, my truth, my truth, my truth. And again, that seeps into politics.
Not
my
really.
truth, my
Only
truth,
the
my
bad
truth.
ones.
So
Only the
it's
bad ones.
relativism, it's subjectivity, like you mentioned, and it's self-refuting because, well, there is no truth. Okay, is that true? My truth is just as true as your truth. Okay, well, what if my truth is that that can't be true?
Right.
You're already excluding by saying that.
If your truth is that that can't be true, that is your truth. Just because it's your truth doesn't mean it's my truth. If I believe I can do something, if I say, I believe I can write a book that will help people take control of their lives and I can give them great advice and I can write a really amazing book that will give out really great advice for people and I can make a living being a coach that helps people like do whatever. You might say to me, Carlin, that's silly and stupid and you can't possibly do that. How could a book really help people? And there's so many people doing that. How could you possibly be successful doing that? And I say, well, that might be your truth, but it's not my truth. I can do whatever the fuck I want to do. It's really quite simple. If you believe something is true, you're going to act in a way in which that thing is true. That doesn't mean that just because you believe something is true, that other people have to believe it's true. Again, that is what free will is.
That all truths are true. You're excluding people who don't believe that. So it's logically inconsistent. And
You
it doesn't
can't
make
force your
sense. None of it
worldview onto
makes
other
sense.
people.
I noticed, I remember in college, some of my liberal friends were quite culturally relativistic. And they say there's no such thing as a bad culture. And you can't point to those Aztecs slaughtering 80,000 people. You can't say that was a bad culture. How dare you? That's so racist. All the cultures are just to be judged on their own terms. By the way, never Western culture. They would seem to exclude Western culture. But okay, putting that aside to say, we have to accept and embrace all of the cultures. And also, there's a rape culture going on college campuses, and we need to stop the rape culture. And I said, hold on.
Right.
If you're telling me we have to accept all the cultures, and then there's this rape culture, no, okay, obviously we have to not accept certain cultures. So if that's the case, then don't we have to come to certain decisions about these things? Don't we ultimately need to say, okay, do this, don't do that, this good, that bad, God good, devil bad, go to church?
Exactly.
Don't we have to say that?
Exactly. At some point, but no one's doing that. And this push to kind of eliminate,
because you're providing such an illuminating example
objectivity
for them with
is
your
just-
obvious positivity and
it's just the
sunshine.
unraveling of scripture before our eyes, essentially.
She's going to say we're in the end times at any moment.
I really, for that whole 10 years, just really believe that, I had an understanding of God, but I wanted it to be the God that was in my mind. I created an idol of God in my head.
Thank
And
God
a
I
lot
have
of
another
New Agers
beer.
will do that because they do understand that God good, devil bad sort of thing, but not in the context of what the Bible says about it. It's in the context of what they want it to be, or whatever New Age book you're reading says it is.
They don't believe in the devil.
And
They
it
don't
really
believe
is
that's
all
real.
these. Essentially, it's all Hinduism, because Hinduism is
No, it's
sort of
not.
like the
Wrong.
marriage of all religions in one, essentially excluding Christianity. And Christianity is really unique because
Yes,
it's the
Hinduism
only,
embraces Judaism.
it's the only worldview that
and Islam.
God reaches down to man. Everything else, it's man reaching up to try and get to God. It's all about doing the work, doing the work, doing the work, doing the work. And salvation, or the Bible does say, like, work out your salvation, but it's not work for, it's work out, like exercise, practice it. Right.
So it's a cooperation with God's grace. Sometimes how it's described as God's grace comes all the way down the mountain, and you have the right. Well, you don't have the right, but you have the ability to turn away from God's grace.
Yes.
Or to cooperate with God's grace. And so obviously there is an action that is entailed by that. Faith without works is dead. But it's not an action to earn your salvation. It's an action to cooperate with God's grace.
Right. And when you love someone, I say this a lot, like when you love someone, you want to commit to them and make them happy. And that's, we're in relationship with God. You kind of want to do that for someone that you love more than anything. But back to the whole Hinduism thing.
You think she loves God? I don't.
It's all relative. It's all you do you sort of mindset. It's all karma. It's all reincarnation. So, if you mess up in this life, you got the next one to figure it out, because your soul's just going to keep cycling through and through and through until you eventually reach nirvana, which is basically.
Here's the real mind fuck of it all. There is no messing up. It is not possible, not really, maybe with rare exception, for you to mess up. You live the life you're supposed to live. You learn the lessons you're supposed to learn. When you die, you have a life review, not to judge yourself, but just to look back. And then you get to decide to do it over again or not, if you want to, or to live another life on a completely other experience, maybe even on another planet in another galaxy. But there's no messing up. There's no bad life. There's only a life that you don't learn from the experience.
Hindu heaven, enlightenment, if you will. And it's just insane when I talk about these things now. Like, when I hear these words come out of my mouth, I can't believe that I subscribed to it for so long. And
I'm sorry,
sad,
Michael. Please subscribe to my
very
podcast.
Grateful for how I came out of the
Please
other
subscribe
side.
to my Christian
From the
podcast,
time
Michael.
of late September to December of 2021, I was teetering on the edge of Christianity and New Ageism, thinking I could do both.
Wait. She's been less than a year. This keeps getting worse.
I began to read the Bible more, and it began to really convict me. And there was this moment when I went to church, pastor did an altar call, come down to be saved if you don't want to do it alone anymore. There's a Father in heaven that loves you, sent his son to stretch out his arms on a wooden cross and die for you. And I'm just like weeping. I go down, everyone claps. It was really nice. But my pastor came over. I told him a little bit about me. He had actually come out of.
I wonder if she goes to one of those churches where they heal people and they like shake on the floor and speak in tongues. It would not surprise me if that was the case.
The New Age movement, like back in the 70s.
Wow.
Yeah.
What sort of denomination is there, or is this a non-denominational?
It's non-denominational, yeah. I don't think the denomination thing are hills to die on necessarily. I think if you just do what the Bible says and love Jesus and work through what the Bible tells you to do. I don't know. I think in a way denominations are another way that man has tried to control God or play God.
But don't we, if the denominations disagree, don't we need to, if there's some
work out the
denominations.
disagreements?
Yeah, I mean, there were denominations.
Oh my God, I love this super chat, Jen. Have you ever seen the movie Defending Your Life? I love that movie. That movie is so good. And it's my understanding, like based on what I've read and different teachers that I've had, that what happens in that movie is not like extremely dissimilar. Now, like, I'm not suggesting like that we go and like we sit in a courtroom, right, and are judged, and like if we don't do well, we have to go back. That's not what it is. But in terms of like sitting down, like I do believe we have a life review when we die, where we look back on our life and we're like, just to kind of like evaluate what happened. And I don't think it's exactly like Defending Your Life, but I don't also think it's like too dissimilar to that. But I love that movie. That was a great movie. We need to watch that for movie night in my Discord.
Denominations, truly. Well, I don't think they're Christian, but they identify as Christian, and we live in a trans age, so everyone identifies as well. But there are denominations that deny the divinity of Christ.
Right.
There are denominations that deny the Nicene Creed, and so they might call themselves Christian, but we as Christians would say, no, you're manifestly not Christian.
Yeah.
And so doesn't that then, on matters of who Christ is, what he wants, how to interpret Scripture?
There are people who say Catholics aren't Christian, Michael.
Around the world. Isn't it our responsibility to?
There are many Christians who say Catholics aren't Christian,
wouldn't it at least
Michael.
be good for us to figure it out?
I think it's our responsibility to just continue to preach what God says. In that sense,
but how do we know?
Reciting the just what the gospel says, because what I've come to just really believe is just what the Bible says is true, and that it's not going to contradict itself, and God's not going to contradict himself, and the Holy Spirit's not going to contradict itself. People will say like, oh, God told me to do this, but if you cross-reference it with Scripture, did he really? Like, oh, God told me I should still be doing astrology. Did he really? No. What does the Bible say about it?
But what about ambiguous verses? For instance, Christ says, "Call no man father." Christ says in the same verse.
What an interesting question.
Set of verses suggests that we shouldn't call people master or teacher. But presumably you don't call your father by his first name,
Right.
or your grandfather, whoever. When you meet someone on the street, you probably call him Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones. Mr. just means master. You go see the physician, you probably call him Dr. Smith, whatever. So are you contradicting what Christ tells you to do?
I would say that's more so in the context of perhaps a sense of authority over you, or
Look at this
over
Christian rationalization.
your
I love it.
sovereignty. Like in that context, like say, don't call someone else father, maybe if they're claiming to speak through me, or same thing with master, like, cult masters don't.
Right. Or teachers.
Right.
But you call your teacher.
Yeah.
So my only point on this is not the meaning of that verse, but my point is reasonable people could interpret that in completely different ways. So then, as you are pursuing the truth, don't you feel an obligation, or at least a sort of urgency, to figure out, one, what it really means, what God really means
Definitely.
there, and two,
That would assume she was sincere in her
who has
journey,
the authority even to interpret what that really means? Because if it's merely a matter of personal interpretation, then you're going to get, just in this country alone, 330 million
Right.
interpretations. So,
Right.
so I agree. I mean, I always hate sort of internecine squabbling between, I don't know, the like liberal Methodists and the less liberal Methodists or whatever. I mean, I think a lot of that is very silly, but it comes from a serious place, which is we want to know God and know what God wants for us, right?
And that makes sense because he created us to need him. We all kind of have this God-shaped hole, and that's why we try and fill it with porn, drugs, sex, empty relationships, astrology.
Yes, I'm filling my
And I think
God-shaped
we
hole with
are,
astrology.
once we
That's
really
it.
know God,
You
we do
caught
want
me.
to know as much as we can, because we understand it's
Oh,
the greatest
man.
gift we've ever been given and the greatest love we've ever had. But I mean, the Bible does say that no man will know God's mind.
Best
So I
Kevin
course
think
Smith movie.
ultimately, there are
Great movie.
questions that we won't be able to answer till we're talking to Jesus. Maybe.
Well, you're right. I mean, we could never comprehend God, in as much as if God could fit in our little heads, he wouldn't be God, right? Because he would fit into our kind of finite, not particularly expansive minds. It reminds me of, there's a legend about St. Augustine when he's writing on the Trinity. And Augustine's walking on the beach, and he sees this little kid, and the kid has got a clamshell, and he's scooping up water and putting it into a hole. And St. Augustine says, "Hey, kid, what are you doing?" And the kid says, "Oh, I'm going to put the ocean in the hole." And Augustine says, "You stupid kid, you can't fit the ocean into that hole." And the kid looks up at Augustine and says, "Right, and you cannot fit the Trinity into your mind, Augustine."
There's a
And then
free
is
link to
transformed into
God
an angel
Dogma
and
on
flies away.
YouTube.
Now,
Oh,
this
man.
is a legend, obviously.
Hang on.
But makes a very good point. You're
Right.
never
If you've never seen Dogma, go watch it free on YouTube. After this, of course, we're gonna finish our stream, but like, go watch Dogma. Dogma is the best all-time Kevin Smith movie, I think.
going to comprehend God. However, I don't think then we necessarily have to fall into a quietism and shrug our shoulders
No
and say,
way.
well, who can know whatever? When Christ says to Peter, "Here are the keys to the kingdom of heaven. What you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. What you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven. Hey, fellas, you have the power to forgive sins, and whose sins you forgive are forgiven, and whose sins you retain are retained." I mean, and go make apostles of all the nations. I mean, he is giving them a real charge in a real place, in a real
Yes.
world, founding an actual
Yeah.
church. And so I just wonder, with that kind of authority, when you'll become Catholic, I guess is what I'm saying.
I don't know. I've looked into a lot of Catholic apologetics. I don't know if you've heard of Mike Winger.
haven't.
He was Catholic turned Christian, and
She ain't never
uses,
becoming
like,
Catholic,
all the
Michael.
scripture as to
Not gonna happen.
why that's so. But then he'll have debates with people that will also use scripture to say, "Oh, well, this is true though." So I don't know. All I know is that I love Jesus and I love the Bible and I want to do what it says. And
you'll figure it out along the way.
yeah,
This is what happened
I'm
to me.
still a baby.
I know, I was thinking about this because my reversion happened guess about 23 was kind of the culminate. 23, 24 was sort of the culmination of it. And like when Hemingway talks about going bankrupt and he says it happens gradually and then suddenly, that was like that for me. And it was a lot of reading and a lot of thinking.
Yeah.
And the reason I keep coming back to these sorts of questions on the nuances of this belief or that belief is because providentially,
you are welcome to come to happy hour tomorrow at 5 p.m. on my second channel, which we have done every week for the past 2 years, which I have never seen you at Corrupt Faith. You are also welcome to come to Socialism Saturday that we do on my channel every weekend at 6 p.m. every Saturday at 6 p.m., which I have also never seen you at. And I'm going to bet you're here to whine and complain that I'm calling Michael Knowles out for being a moron who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about when you don't bother to show up for any other content. And now you're pretending you're like, I used to watch you all the time and you changed so much. And you're a deeply unhappy person. You are welcome to come back and watch any of my other content at all, but don't fucking pretend that you do, because we all know the truth. We know who the regulars here are, and we know who the whiners are. So I'm sure I won't see you tomorrow at happy hour at 5 p.m. I'm also sure I won't see you on Saturday, but you're here now. Exactly. Oh my god, oh, she does a stream about Tim Pool! Burn the witch! Are you going to come back for happy hour tomorrow, Corrupt Faith? Are you going to have you ever been to Socialism Saturday? I'll wait. I'll wait here for just a second to give you a chance to answer. Have you ever been to a happy hour or a Socialism Saturday or listened to the Actively Unwoke podcast or watched any of the clips that I spent hours making or watched any of the Disenraged series or watched any of the school investigation streams? Are you only here to complain? How much you want to bet this person isn't going to answer again? Have you ever done any of that? Because I don't recall seeing you at any of it. You're just here to whine. Why do you click on content you don't want to watch, Corrupt Faith? Why'd you click on the thumbnail? You're welcome to go to my channel. Oh. I haven't been with Walkaway in over a year. I have done nothing with Walkaway in over a year, so where the fuck have you been? And have you watched any of my other content? Again, I'll ask you again, because I produce dozens of hours of content a week. Have you ever watched a school's investigation stream? Have you ever watched Socialism Saturday? Have you ever watched Happy Hour? Have you ever watched the Disenraged series? Have you ever watched any of my interviews? Have you ever watched any of those things? You just here to complain about the one stream you don't like that you just had to click on so you could get your whine in? I don't mind making an example out of you. No one's forcing you to be here. No one forced you to click on the thumbnail. No one's forcing you to watch. Exercise some personal fucking responsibility. No, I don't think it is obvious that you've watched any of my other shows, because if you had watched any of my other shows, you wouldn't come in here and go, what happened to you? Your content used to be so different. Now you just do streams that I hate. Keep whining in my chat. You're going to get blocked, but we all know you're not going to come back anyway, Corrupt Faith. We all know that. I don't accept whiners here.
Yeah. Astrologically, perhaps one of the first people to make me think about God again it was actually my roommate, randomly assigned roommate in college, who was a cradle Catholic, fell away. His family became kind of a more mega-church Protestant type family, but he was sort of agnostic. And he introduced me to a Calvinist philosopher who was at Notre Dame, a Catholic university, who was presenting a version of an argument for the existence of God that goes back to St. Anselm of Canterbury, who's obviously a Catholic saint, but whose argument was rejected by St. Thomas Aquinas, one of the most important doctors of the church, so incredibly complex.
Oh,
and that would be the
Wait, does blocking you prove my point when you came in and broke the rules of my chat that are well-established rules of my chat, that you would know the rules of my chat if you watched any other streams? They've been the same rules for a while now. Don't be a dick, no whining. You are both being a dick and you are also whining, which means you are breaking both of the rules in my chat at the same time. And you think that me blocking you after you are openly and brazenly breaking the rules of my chat that are well established on every other stream that you claim you've watched but obviously haven't? Goodbye, bitch. Enjoy your life. Go whine somewhere else.
The ontological argument for God. And so I really went through this period where I was reading
Ooh, I love blocking
Calvinists.
people.
I was
Blocking
reading
people gives me a rush.
Anglicans. I was all of these people, even Chesterton, who Catholics love, and he became Catholic. But Chesterton started, when he wrote Orthodoxy, he was Anglican. John Henry Newman, who's now a Catholic saint, he wrote all these arguments against the papacy and how he hated the Catholic Church. And so it was just, that period of my life, it's like a whirlwind, because I just felt like the gates had been opened. And this
Yeah.
kind of, after so much time in the wilderness, this rush of truth, some of which,
Yes.
you know, there was some confusion in there. I was getting hit with some kind of contradictions from, it was messy, you know, but ultimately it was a kind of rush of truth that was coming on me that I'm
Yeah.
still working out.
Right. And it's honestly really fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun
No,
process.
she looks like she's having a ball.
After I went down to be saved, if you will, although I feel like at that point I already was, it was just kind of
The symbol of it.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you. He prayed with me for a couple minutes, and back with the moon rituals and things like that, I would always feel this ache in my chest, like this emptiness, this hole, this
that was you.
anxiety, this crushing
That was you.
weight of, I don't even know, I can't even explain it. It just was like pressure, like I was going to have a heart attack, but my heart wasn't beating fast. It really, really.
That's not
intense
how that
pain whenever
works.
we would meditate, and I would try and kind of avoid meditation because of
What?
that reason. It would happen when I would do yoga.
You would avoid meditation and you had intense pain when you meditated. That was because you are a miserable person who needs to open up your heart chakra. But you didn't meditate, and so it didn't open. And I know that because I went through that shit when I was in Peru, and then my heart chakra burst wide open and I became psychic as fuck after that. But I understand what she's talking about, but it's because she's not taking responsibility for her own shit. She believes that. You're going to hell. Congratulations.
It would happen when I would pray, which back then was praying to the pantheistic God.
It's not called praying.
What was that like?
It's called meditating.
Like, what did you
essentially praying to myself, you know?
Huh.
So
No.
strange.
No,
I,
that's not what it's like. Not what
I
it's
would-
like at all.
It was never like, asking for. It was kind of, I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to
Nope.
make this happen because I have God's power
Nope.
in me. Because
That is not. When you are manifesting, you don't say, I'm going to do this. You say, I am a person who has already done this. You see yourself as the person that has already done the thing, and then you kind of work backwards to say, what would I do if I were that person? And then you act as though you are a person that has already accomplished that thing. You would never say, this is how we know this woman is a total fraud. There is not a single law of attraction person that would ever say, I'm going to do this. Because when you say, I'm going to do this, you are putting yourself you are seeing yourself as a person who hasn't done it. You're seeing yourself as a person who will get around to doing it maybe sometime in the future. You're not seeing yourself as a person who's already accomplished that thing. Law of attraction is all about feeling the way you would if you already had everything you wanted. And then acting as though you're the person that was able to get anything you ever wanted, what would that person do? How would that person work? What would that person's schedule be? What would they focus their energy and attention on? What would their mindset be? She's a total fraud. Sorry, not sorry.
I am a part of source, and that is what God is.
So it wasn't just a prayer, which is a request or an act of worship and adoration. It was a declaration. It wasn't,
Yes.
please, Lord, let this happen.
Yeah,
it
it was,
I'm
I
going to
am,
do it whether
which-
you want me or not.
That's not
Right.
what it's supposed to be.
And that's what like kind of law of attraction thing is with
No.
manifestation. It's all I am, which is again counterfeit gospel, because we know who says I am who I am. And so it's in a way claiming authority over God, or saying that you know better than God. That's what all the new ageism is. I know
No.
better than God. And it's just not true. If it were true, we would have figured it out by now. Let's
Wow.
be honest.
Even just that declaration that it centers around I am seems coincidental.
Right. A little too much.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's like that. Reiki, laying hands in scripture.
Right.
There's all
We're
these
all
counterfeits.
Satanists.
Right. Because who lays hands in scripture? It's Christ and his apostles.
Right.
And who lays hands in Reiki? Like you.
Like, yeah.
Me.
Like me worshiping.
You lay hands in Reiki, and then spirit works through you. Nothing comes from you. You will not be successful as a Reiki practitioner if you believe it's coming from you. It is not coming from you. It is coming through you. You have nothing to do with it. The hardest part of practicing Reiki is stepping out of the way. Is taking your ego out of it.
My aliens,
Yeah.
what authority do I have? And that's the thing about Satan, though, is that he's not very creative. He's crafty, but he's not very creative, and he can't really make anything. He just kind of mimics things. That's what all the new ageism is. It's just kind of mimicking godliness, and that's why we're drawn to it, because we are inherently made to need God. And so when something looks like God and we don't really have the foundational understanding of what that is,
Yeah.
we get drawn to it and we kind of want more of it. And then we fall down rabbit holes when we don't have a Christian foundation or any sense of, biblical theology at all. Because I didn't.
This point on mimicry is so good. It's such a good point that Satan doesn't create anything. He just kind of apes other things in a way that is distorted and perverted. But even, human beings are mimetic creatures, right? We imitate other people. We when we spend time with our friends, we take on the attributes of our friends. This is why people popularly say that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And we do that. I mean, I could point to aspects that have now become part of my personality. And I don't know, the way I speak or the way I dress or the way I walk. And I could say, oh no, I think I first got this from this guy, when I was 7, or I got this when teenagers are always taking on new personalities, and mercifully most are discarded at some point. But, obviously part of it stays because you have a personality. And so then I wonder, if we are in a position now where public Christianity is on the decline, traditional religion
that's a shame.
writ large is on the decline, and all this weird new age stuff is on the increase, for people who don't have much of a foundation, they're very often just going to copy what they see, what their friends do.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is why the conservatives hate me so much, because I ain't giving up these beliefs, because I think this is beautiful. The problem with the woo-woo stuff is there aren't enough good teachers, because you're going to run across a lot of women like this in like woo-woo philosophy. It is hard to find the good teachers, but once you do, there is no religion that can compare to woo. I'm sorry. Absolutely none. Not in terms of self-empowerment, not in terms of direction, not in terms of results, not in terms of discipline. Torchwood Gal, love they assume we all believe Satan is real. Exactly. We don't believe in Satan. At all. In any way. You guys invented Satan.
suspect this is behind the transgender explosion. Now,
Right.
more than 1 in 5 Zoomers say that they're LGBTQ. Either Alex Jones is right and there's something in the water, or turning the frogs gay, or it's a social contagion. It seems maybe it's both, but I suspect it's more the latter.
Mm-hmm. And that's why when I say it's dangerous and it needs to be talked about, that's why, because we're complementary beings and we just do that.
We are in the end
And
times.
so,
We must save everyone.
if you're in school and this girl's walk around, she looks cool because she has on a Zodiac t-shirt and
oh no,
maybe
the
she brings out her
Zodiac.
tarot cards at lunch. You get drawn, you think that's cool. I want to do that too. So it's important, I think, to really teach about these things and expose these things. The Bible says expose darkness. So like you said, yeah, you can't sit back and shrug your shoulders. You do have a responsibility to understand to the best of your knowledge what the Bible says and what that means, I believe. And especially with kids,
Because kids are so malleable.
exactly. And it's just so funny how
we should
we
teach
can
kids
have
to be repressed.
gay pride festivals and drag queen shows and drag queens in kindergarten classes, and that's fine. That's not indoctrination. But taking your kid to church, teaching them the Bible, what the Bible says is true, that's indoctrination. Like, that's
No one
not
is
okay.
telling.
You're not
it's-
allowed.
Literally, no one is saying you can't take your kids to church. That is not an argument that one has made.
Not even just that you can have these pride parades and the drag stuff and everything in elementary schools. It's that you have to. We now
Right.
have to have all this stuff.
Right.
And you are not allowed to teach the Bible. It's the one book you're not
No,
allowed to teach
you
in public
cannot-
schools.
Yes,
You can teach.
you can't teach other religious texts in public schools. What the fuck are you talking about? See, this is what it's come back to. We want to teach the Bible in schools. This is why conservatives will fuck up the anti-woke movement every day of the week. Because it's not enough for conservatives to just say, we don't want to teach critical race theory. They have to go, we don't want to teach critical race theory, and we need to teach the Bible. No. No religion in schools. No means no. Like, this is one of the reasons why the conservative book banning bullshit is so stupid, because they're like, we need to remove these books from the library, and by the way, the librarian's going to replace them with books that are just as fucked up like next week. So you haven't really accomplished anything. But then they say, we need to remove these books from the library and let's get the Bible on the shelf. It's like, bro, come on. Why is it loading? What's going on? Oh, there it
The
goes.
Secret, you can teach
Yeah.
some weird occult stuff.
Where the fuck is The Secret being taught in school? And by the way, The Secret is like a shitty book that doesn't actually explain what the law of attraction is. But like, where the hell is The Secret being taught in school? I study school curriculum like every day at some of the most woke leftist schools in the country. Where the ever-loving F is The Secret being taught in school? Has anyone ever heard of The Secret being taught in school? Again, Michael Knowles is making shit up. This is not real.
You can teach Mein Kampf, actually. You just can't teach the Bible.
Who
Who
That
is
offends
teaching
somebody.
Mein
It's kinda weird.
Kampf
That
in
might offend somebody.
school?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I've been told that a bunch now too, is that, oh, I'm a
I want a single solitary example of Mein Kampf being assigned reading in a public school. Has that happened anywhere?
offensive now. I'm a bigot now. I'm mean now. I'm not tolerant anymore. And it's crazy, first of all, how many people preferred the me that wanted to die every day.
Huh.
You're not a
And it's
happy
also
person. Don't
crazy
pretend you are.
How, again, you're yelling at me about tolerance while deploying incredible intolerance to what I now
Exactly.
believe.
Right.
So thank you.
You want to know what would
for
happen if Mein
not
Kampf was taught in
being
school? We'd see
consistent
it all
with
over
what
the
you're
news.
saying, because it just further makes me really see that I'm on the right path now.
She's got that
Based on all the
Christian
inconsistencies
persecution
from
complex
people
going.
in their, like,
Right.
the pitfalls of their logic and their belief
That's for sure.
systems, and how just
I have been a
Christianity
Christian
really is
for a
just,
year. It's time for me to be
it just makes
persecuted
sense.
for my
It makes
beliefs.
sense. It answers all the questions.
Well, this is the point of theology. People seem to think that theology is just pie in the sky, you know, scholastic, the schoolmen just arguing over nonsense. Theology is faith-seeking understanding.
Mm.
And I guess you could say a similar thing about the New Age stuff without the understanding, right?
No,
Theology is
wrong.
applying rigor and logic
Right.
to our intuitions and to our faith.
Mhm.
The New Age stuff completely discards
Yes.
logic and rigor and reason.
No,
and
it
just says, well,
doesn't.
man, if you feel the heat, you know, then it's probably your
Exactly, you do.
chakras
Mhm.
acting up.
That's not what it
Mhm.
does at all.
And it's all you do you, I'll do me, and
Why do
YOLO,
YOLO.
which is a whole thing in and of itself. You know, Aleister Crowley is like the
Wait,
father
YOLO,
of modern
hang on.
Satanism, essentially.
Well, I'm glad she's finally admitting that she's read Crowley. But like YOLO, you're saying that YOLO is a new age thing when you're also bitching and complaining about how people believe in multiple lives? You either believe you only live once, or you believe that we live multiple lives. YOLO can't be a new age thing if it's also a new age thing that we believe in multiple lives. Pick one. You can't have both.
It's also behind, people don't want to hear this, the inspiration of all classic rock and roll. They loved him. He's like on Led Zeppelin
Oh
covers,
my
Beatles, all of it.
God.
Yes, all of them. David Bowie.
Guys,
Loved him.
rock and roll is demonic,
And this is a
according
guy
to this
who
woman.
just loathed
Look at Michael
Christianity, had,
Knowles'
like,
face. He's like,
devout
no,
Christian
no, don't do it.
parents.
Michael
Have you ever heard
Michael
of
Knowles
him?
like,
Oh,
don't
of
do
course,
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
Don't
and
do it.
he's, you know, so you know all about him, and
And what was his rule? He said there's one commandment.
do what thou wilt.
Yeah, do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want, and that's in music, that's in culture. So that's what I was talking about earlier. How it's like all the mainstream things are all
Heaven and
obsessed
Healing
with following the
podcast.
doctrines of these people that hate God
Yeah,
and love the liberation of Satan.
right.
So
We're back in the
there's-
satanic panic.
that alone is just something to really be curious about if you're an unbeliever, or if you doubt, you know, if you doubt Christianity, if you think it's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo. That's something to really take a look at and ask why.
Right, because you could at least observe, even if you're on the fence or you're
Right.
skeptical of all of this, you could say, you know, at least it's kind of weird, right? It's kind of weird to wear the leather harness. I mean, even sometimes people will say, especially on the transgender issue, but you could say it about the crystals or the Reiki or the astrology. You say, oh, who cares? Oh, come on, who cares? And
Yeah.
I always flip that question back and I say, well, you're asking why I care. I guess my question is, why do you care? Or why do the people pushing this stuff care so much? If the debate over transgender bathrooms comes down to, oh, why do you conservatives care? I say, well, why have you cared so much that you invest time and effort and resources and national political campaigns just to let boys go into the little girls' room?
Mhm.
Obviously, you care a whole lot. And I care because, one, it's unjust and it's based on a false anthropology and lies. But two, the other reason I care is because these people care so much. So obviously, there's something
Yes.
important at stake here, even if it's a little hard to pick up on at first.
Mhm. And from towards the beginning of our conversation, how I mentioned New Ageism is in culture and politics. That's a great example, is transgenderism, because yes, they want all-inclusive bathrooms, and ultimately this is all to validate the self. Whatever you're feeling is true.
Right.
Whatever you want is what should be. It's all just constantly affirming self.
That's not what it
Self. Nothing
is.
outside of self matters.
I'm a broken
Self
record at this
matters.
point. She is
But
not correct.
At the same token, well, everyone else needs to accept that. We need to honor that. We need to honor each other's truths as the one big cohesive truth.
That's not
So it's
what's
not-
taught.
It's not about the selves individually. It's really just about yourself.
Exactly.
It's about you get to do whatever the hell you want, and everyone else has to indulge
And
it.
you don't want to offend people. You want to be inclusive. You want to be loving, which, like, I understand the mindset, especially because I used to have all those beliefs. Like, I'm not someone who's just been I wasn't raised a conservative Christian. I was liberal for a really long time. I had Feel the Burn t-shirts.
Oh God.
I
just looked at this woman's YouTube channel real quick. She's got a full-on fucking podcasting setup. Like a full-on like studio, and like this is a grift. This is a massive, 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 massive grift is what this is. This woman has more of a studio than I have. I have like my office with some stuff hanging on the wall and a microphone. I don't have a full-on like set. Maybe I will one day, but I don't right now. This woman's got like a full-on like podcasting like studio.
I was practicing all the new age stuff. Like I can confidently say I understand those mindsets, and I know that a lot of it comes from a genuine place of care for other people, care for wanting to make the best of your life. And of course, that comes from making other people feel good, so validating them. And so in a way, that's even still narcissism, because
Right.
you just want to validate other people. You don't want to.
She has an episode called "The Music Industry is Satanic." She really does believe that music is Satan. Wow.
You don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable. Why would we ever do that? And that's, since being Christian, that's a huge contrast that I see versus back then. Because again, like I'm crazy now, but I wasn't then. And my beliefs offend people.
Right.
Just
But
because I'm telling them essentially.
Do you know what happened?
I'm
Listen, let
holding-
me show you guys this. Let me show you guys. I have to take this off the screen for a second. Do you want to know why this woman suddenly became a Christian? I'm going to show you exactly why this woman suddenly became a Christian. Let's look at her channel. So this is back when she was doing all of this like yoga stuff. She was getting like maybe a couple hundred views, maybe a couple hundred views. And like views aren't everything, by the way. Like you can't like I actually don't really think views matter. Like that's not how I make my money, but like a lot of people need views to make money. So she's doing this yoga thing, and she's like just not getting that many views. And then watch what happens when she finds Jesus. She started to get over 1,000 views, and then went back to getting a couple hundred views, and then still getting a couple hundred views, oh, she's rebranding her podcast in Christ. What happened? 5,200 views, 6,500 views, 2,100 views, 5,500. Now she's getting thousands of views because she's talking about the Bible. Look at this setup that she has in her Truth About Yoga. This was 6 hours. Look at that fucking setup. That is a full-on studio. That is a set. That's exactly what happened. That's why she found Jesus. It was a great mystery that we solved.
Holding them to the fire and essentially saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
And people don't want to be told that they're wrong, because then
Probably
that
why
makes them
Carrie Smith
accountable to
found
something.
Jesus
And that's
too. No, I'm kidding
going
about
back
that.
to this whole.
I think she really
backdrop
did
of
legitimately
Hinduism.
join a cult.
I think that's why people are so drawn to religions like that and to these new age practices as a whole, is because there's no accountability for any of it.
You can never
because
be wrong.
It's all you.
Yeah.
It's all on you.
There's
It's
ultimate
your karma, it's
accountability.
your
What are you
life.
talking about?
Just
You
do
have
the best
ultimate
you can,
accountability. If you fuck
whatever
up,
that means to you.
you're
So
going to pay for it.
there's something that seems comforting there. And when you
Indeed.
get back to that word comfort, you had been indulging all of these practices that were supposed to comfort you and solve your despair and angst that had been going on for years and years and years. But at the end of it, you still wanted to kill yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're doing something that's less comfortable by the standards of our culture,
Yes.
and you're at far greater peace.
Yes.
That's a little strange.
It's isn't it? And I just find it I really do find it fascinating how people react to me now when I, put things out there like this is what Jesus says. But again, I really just believe what the Bible says. The Bible
She's
says
so
you'll be
persecuted that
persecuted.
she's
You
getting
know, if
thousands
they
of more
hate me, they're
views
going to
now
hate
than she
you.
was
I
when she
mean,
was
you
doing
have to remember
yoga.
that
She is so
Jesus himself
persecuted.
made pretty radical claims. I mean, they killed him.
saying
Like,
saying that he is God.
right,
Yeah,
they
for
killed
one.
him.
Yeah.
So why would they like you for,
Yeah.
you know, it just,
Right.
it kind of makes sense in that.
In as much as we endeavor to imitate Christ,
Mhm.
we're probably a rather pale imitation most of the
Indeed.
time. And, you know, so you figure, well, that's what they did to him. The more we imitate Christ, probably the more suffering and persecution we'll endure
The
in this world.
persecution
Probably.
complex
Again, it's
of
not
Christians.
that it's a certain thing, but probably. And that's
Christians
the way
are
it goes, 'cause you
persecuted
referred
because
earlier
they
to the devil
assume
as
they're
the
going to
prince
be
of this world. And the
persecuted.
Bible refers to the devil as the prince of this world. But on the point of the relationship, so you lose your friends.
Yeah.
Did you lose all your friends?
No, actually, one of them came with me out of the New Age, which was really cool.
Hmm.
I was really glad not to lose her, and we go back and forth all the time in text. Like even this morning when I'm driving to the airport, she's like, "The moon looks so pretty right now. It's just I feel like I can see every crater." And she's like, "It's really cool to just appreciate the moon as God's creation and not as some idol that's controlling my life." I was
Huh.
like, "Totally agree." It's
On that point, because you say that the thing you shared
Again,
with all
she
these
never
people and
understood
why
her
you
own
lost a
belief
lot of these
system.
friends is just sin. You just would
Mhm.
sin together, and so you give that up. But sin is very tempting,
Mhm.
even after you give it up.
Yeah.
Especially after you give it up, it's very
Yeah.
tempting. Do you find yourself tempted to, you know, pull out the tarot cards or anything?
Never.
Never.
No. When, you know, I'd say the first couple months when I first knew of Jesus, after I called out to him for the first time, because I was tempted to stay in that world, that's why I was trying to do both for so long. And then just came that point one day reading Isaiah in December. I called my best friend, the devout Christian, our whole
The
lives,
moon
and I
does
was
not
like, "I can't
control
do
your
it
life.
anymore. I'm
That
gonna
is
give up my
stupid.
podcast. I don't know what's gonna happen with
No
that. I'm gonna
astrologer
stop
would
teaching
say the moon
yoga.
controls
I
your
can't do any of
life.
this anymore." It's not that I couldn't, like I physically couldn't, like my hands were tied. It's just that I didn't want to.
Yeah, your
So
heart's
I
not in
couldn't.
it
My
anymore.
heart was changed.
Right.
My mind was renewed. And the hardest part was just doing it.
Huh.
But after I put out my final episode of Moon and Back, where I said those same words, I don't want to do yoga anymore. I don't want to do astrology anymore. And I was saying, like, for the first time,
Then
I know
you
this sounds
don't
crazy,
have
this is-
to.
I've really met Jesus, and I know that you guys can tell that I've been talking about it with the astrology and trying to make it work, but it's like, you know, round hole square peg. It just doesn't work because they don't belong together, because this is a sin. And I always would tell, and I feel so bad for what I would tell people, because I was like a self-proclaimed self-healer.
Yeah.
And was teaching others about self-healing.
Self-proclaimed is going to be the key
Wow.
phrase in that sentence.
How many self-healers, so-called, probably do that?
Exactly. But it's okay because it's the process.
Wow.
Yeah. It's your healing. It's your shadow work. It's a very popular term. The idea of shadow work is literally to integrate your demons, like
Yes.
your inner demons. So this is like the dialogue is used. It's, you know, integrate your demons, fight through your demons, make friends with your demons so that you
What?
can understand. Yeah, this is like stuff I used to teach and believe and preach. Make friends with your demons because they're teaching you something.
That's not what it is.
But it's all in that guise of, again, Satan is liberating.
That's
So
not.
if you make friends with the demons,
my
they're not
God.
some scary monster in the corner. You can kind of face it and work through it. So it's good intentions, but it's garbage, honestly.
Yeah. If I had to give 3 pieces of advice, that's all I could ever give.
I want to invite this woman for a discussion on my channel. I really do. Like, prove to me you knew what I want Joshua and I to grill this bitch. She doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. That is not what shadow work is. I want to invite this woman on my channel and not tell her, like, maybe I'll like make this stream unlisted or something. I don't want to tell her I watched this and that I know she's full of shit. And like just grill her. Like, what about this? What about that? What about that? I want to fucking break this woman. This woman is pissing me off now.
To anybody. Certainly one of them would be, don't make friends with demons.
even your own.
Especially
your
Yeah.
own, actually, yeah. Because again, it's like a justification of all things that are wrong with you, or all things wrong that you do,
That's
kind
not
of thing.
okay. That's not
Like,
what it is.
I
But
had really bad
congratulations.
patterns in my relationship, you know, and we worked through all this.
In your
but
romantic
my
relationship?
romantic relationship, because I was
This woman has never had a long-term romantic relationship in her life.
lusty and just wanted to
Oh, I slept around a
go
lot.
go do my thing, because I was heavy before. I want to go do the sexual movement, like having these conversations
Sow
with this
your
guy.
wild oats.
Yes. I like saying, like, I never had a hoe phase. Maybe I should try. Maybe that will make me feel better.
So you're saying this to your
So,
boyfriend?
yeah, like, say when he was my boyfriend at the time, when I'm saying this to him, like,
Oh,
this is
man.
because I'm like going through all these crazy things. Like, I'm just sad, like grasping at anything that I could.
So you're saying this is an amazing moment. So you're saying you're getting physically healthier, at least, and you're losing weight and you're exercising. And you're saying, man, I used to be really fat and now I'm really hot. And so, listen, boyfriend, I want to go sleep around. Is
Kind
that
of.
cool?
That was like essentially my mindset. Like,
Oh, man.
but this is like who I am. And again, I'm not accountable to anything. I'm just living for what makes me feel good.
You are always accountable. Karma is a thing. Notice she hasn't said the word karma in that we've been talking for an hour and a half now. She has not said karma once. You are always accountable. What you put out into the world, you will experience. If you are a miserable human being, as this woman clearly is, that is because you have put miserable things out into the world, and karma has hit you right in the ass, and you are a miserable human being based on your own creation. There is not a single belief, like within like woo-woo ideology, for lack of a better term, that says you can do whatever you want with no consequences. That's retarded. Legitimately retarded. If you put bad things into the world, like you're miserable every day, like you're not grateful for the things you have, like you go on the internet and lie, you're going to get bullshit right back, man. And then it's your choice. Do I like what I'm experiencing? Yes or no? If I don't like what I'm experiencing, what do I need to change about what I'm contributing? How can I take responsibility for being a miserable human being for years on end, even though I have walls of self-help books that I haven't read? What do I need to change?
Right. Right. So if you're not accountable to God, you're certainly not accountable to your boyfriend.
Yeah.
Right.
And
No human being attains
this
enlightenment.
is like part of the testimony
Hang
I
on.
don't talk about a lot.
There is not a single human being that attains enlightenment. With possibly once in a millennia rare exception. She has not attained enlightenment. You have not attained enlightenment. I have not attained enlightenment. There have been like one person in the entire history of Buddhism, maybe with the exception of a couple like Buddhist like Shaolin monks or something like that, that has attained enlightenment.
But he and I have really gotten into this recently, so I can share it more. But
And the reason you would escape karma if you attained enlightenment is you would know how all this shit works, and you would live in a place of pure love. And you wouldn't be acting from a place of fear. No, they really don't. They really don't. I mean, the Dalai Lama, fine. But the Dalai Lama is not enlightened. The Dalai Lama is a human being having a spiritual experience. Which, by the way, the Dalai Lama would actually say. The Dalai Lama is not going to say that he attained pure enlightenment. The Dalai Lama is probably pretty close. Like, he's farther along than most. But the Dalai Lama has not attained pure enlightenment. Dalai Lama is a birthright.
part of my testimony, a big part of it, is God really saved me from wrecking that relationship. Like, I was so tempted by really bad situations repeatedly.
So you made choice based on your free
never
will.
like, oh, maybe it's like a good guy that could be something. It's like, it's not like a red flag, it's like a red boat
Yeah.
of a man.
Just like the worst.
Just the worst and
guys.
terrible guys. And like, I'd just be so tempted by it. And that was one of the very first ways that Jesus showed me that he was in my heart, because he turned that off like immediately and like actually let me for the first time like really fully love this person and not wonder what it would be like to seek out pleasure outside of that.
Bullshit.
It was really
Bullshit.
incredible.
No, I don't believe her.
I remember in my single days, in my atheistic days as well,
I don't believe her at all.
I similarly was sowing my wild oats and, have red blood, sure liked the pretty girls, and I remember there was one time after, I don't know, the 7,000th girlfriend, let's say.
You're telling me Michael Knowles
I
has slept with
woke up one
7,000
morning and I
girls?
thought,
Okay, sure.
what's the point?
Yeah.
I thought, not only is this probably wrong, to be just kind of casually seeing all these people and, engaging in all sorts of things I shouldn't do, but it's just such a waste of time.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a perversion of my soul and someone else's soul, and it's not. It's. But,
I'll tell you this too. I don't know anything for sure. I'm not spreading any gossip here. I don't know anything. I don't know anything other than what tends to happen when people are off camera. I'm gonna bet that Sin is right, and he still likes the pretty girls. I don't know. I'm not saying anything. I'm not speaking out of turn. I'm not saying I know anything, because I don't. I really, really don't in this case. I've never spoken to him in my life, but I know enough about what happens behind the scenes in the conservative like influencer space to be fairly confident that he still likes the pretty girls.
even before I got to that, I just thought, like, what a huge. None of this is going to lead to marriage. None of this is going to lead to anything. This is just a kind of brief titillation, and then I don't know, wake up and do it again.
Do it again. Yep. And it's crazy because in all that time too, I always knew what I really wanted, and I would question, why do I sabotage this? Like, why, when I know what I really, really, really want is just to be in a, monogamous, unconditionally loving, trusting, loyal, lovely relationship like my grandma and grandpa had. They were married 18 until she passed, like that kind of relationship. That's what I want. So why am I going after these things? And it just ties back to this, to sin ultimately, because I was a slave to what my flesh just wanted, not what really my spirit wanted.
Right.
I was a slave to it. And so I continued to justify it, oh, back to the astrology. Oh, okay. Like my, Mars is in, I don't even remember anymore, which feels really good to say. My Mars is in, and Mars is like the planet of sex.
She was never an astrologer.
Like, who decides
no,
that,
it's
by the way?
not.
No, men are from Mars, I've been told.
Right.
Mars is not the planet of sex. Like if she doesn't know where her Mars is, she was never an astrologer. Sorry, not sorry.
So my Mars is in whatever constellation. That's why I'm so
It's called
lusty.
houses, not constellations.
It's just-
Houses.
So that's fine. It's fine because this is how I am.
It's in the stars.
And exactly. And it's something just for me to work through. It's just my own karma, my own BS.
So
Just gotta work
if you
through
don't
it.
mind my asking, when you bring this to your then boyfriend, what does he say? No.
Yeah, he literally, like verbatim, no, because I tried to like open up the relationship. He was like, I'm not
no
doing
thanks.
that.
Yeah.
No. So
That's good. A lot better these days. Guys are such wimps that they'll. I know men who have their girlfriends say, "I want to go sleep around." I like friends of mine have said, like, "Well, that's okay. You've got to explore." You've.
that's exactly what people were saying to me.
That's like that. That is
Except for her boyfriend.
cuckoldry. Like when people say you're a cocker, that's like literally what that is.
And
Awful.
it destroys, again, the paradigm that God intended. Like my heart totally transformed around.
How much do you want to bet that there are conservative Christians like masturbating to this video? I'm not even making that up. They're like, oh, yes, 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 say it again. Do it again. Yes, yes. Talk about those boundaries. Do it, do it, do it. I swear. swear to God, I'm not even making that up. That clip's gonna end up on the internet. That's not gonna be a good thing. But like, whatever, fuck it.
Around what sex means, around what relationships mean, around what marriage means. You know, before I was like, marriage is just a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Don't see it that way, even for a second now.
No, the piece of
And it's
paper
crazy.
symbolizes something.
Right. And it's crazy how much has changed in a year. And, you know, that's something else that's very important to my whole story is because people that have been watching me, like,
Oh God.
they don't want to talk to me, but they watch me kind of.
Can someone, and I'm not even joking about this, can someone who Carrie doesn't know please plant the idea in Carrie's head? Can you like respond to Carrie on Twitter, be like, Carrie, I saw this amazing new Christian on Knowles' show, and Carrie, I just think the conversation would be so amazing if you had her on your show, and I'm sure she'd come on your show, Carrie. Can someone please just do that on Twitter? So that we can make this little match in heaven happen, and then I'll meta stream it, and I'll piss Carrie. Please, I need someone to help me. Please, please do this. I just need, like, you could even create a Twitter account. Be like, Carrie, you guys would have the very best conversation. You would spread God's word, Carrie.
Thing. Don't follow me, but are in my story views.
All the better, Sin.
I know that those people can't
More
deny
entertaining
that
for
they've
us.
seen changes in me, like just total 180 from who I used to be and how I used to act and behave to who I am now. And not only that, but all the things that have transpired, like this opportunity, like
Really?
this is insane.
What
That
happened?
that I'm here.
I say it all the time. You know, this is you're welcomed to the Michael Knowles show set. You've made it. You're at the top of the heap. I say it all the time.
But it's funny. I like almost kind of funny prayed about this like a couple months ago. I was like,
I prayed that God
Daily
would send
Wire
me a
would be
podcast.
really cool. I'm just saying.
Did you really?
Like seriously, it's really insane.
She
Similarly,
manifested
how
it.
I prayed.
Oh, are you saying you
and it's like
manifested
these prayers
it?
that aren't really.
You're saying you
I'm like, that's
manifested
never
it? Is
gonna
that what we're
happen, you
saying?
know.
You
If
manifested
it's
it?
in your will, I would really like if you could set us up in Tennessee. Beyonce gets offered a job that he didn't apply for in Tennessee, in Franklin, exactly where I want to live. You know, it's just.
I love too how you phrase that prayer because it's how I phrase my prayers. If it's your will.
Yes.
And I don't just do it to be the most pious boy in Nashville. The other reason I do it is because have you ever thought you wanted something and really thought, if I get this one thing, then I'll be so happy. And then you don't get it. And then something else happens. And in retrospect, you realize, man, if I had gotten that thing that I thought I wanted, it would have ruined my life.
Exactly.
Because that's happened to me multiple times. So it's kind of in self-preservation. I say, if it be your will,
yeah,
I sure would like this thing. But if it's not your will, I don't want that thing because it's going to screw up my life.
Yeah, that's how I pray too. And it's an extra step with me to do that intentionally because coming from New Ageism, it's all like self-sovereignty and it's my will. It's what I decide. So I make it a point to I'm handing it to you. Like I don't want to make it happen. I want you to make it happen and work through me. And he's really been just like the blessings are just it's insane, just flooding.
I became a
Ever
Christian, and all of a sudden, God blessed me with His
where I
love.
denounced Moon and back that day. It was really funny because I had spent the whole year trying to build this thing, this podcast, and my audience, it was just struggling. Like I was like struggling. I'm like paying for ads. Nothing was like really like it would like spark, but then it wouldn't like pop off.
Yeah.
And so
So you're saying that Christians are so persecuted? They're so persecuted that you were trying to build this new agey yoga astrology podcast and you never got any views when you were building your new agey yoga astrology podcast. And then all of a sudden you started talking about Jesus and you all of a sudden got all these views, but Christians are persecuted and you can't even talk about Christ in a yoga studio without getting dirty looks. But magically, as soon as you started talking about Jesus, you started getting all these views. Is that what I'm hearing?
Released the final episode oh, here comes the audience you were looking for. It was like that. And that's just how it's been with God ever since. It's like when I listen to him, and I'm not saying like God's a vending machine. Like that's not what I'm saying at all. Like just, ask him for things and he'll do it for you. It's that when he is so pleased that you are in his will, he will really show you what his will is all about. And
It's kind of like when you make choices that align with the path that you are supposed to be on, life becomes easier, like I said at the beginning, which is completely aligned with woo-woo philosophy. Listen, man, there is absolutely a timeline in which this woman chose before she was born that she was going to go through a religious conversion of some sort in this lifetime, and that she is on the path she's supposed to be on. That's legit. You can be a conservative, born-again Christian that denounces all woo-woo stuff and still be on the path that you were meant to be on based on what you chose before you were born. You can choose experiences like this. You can choose to be a born-again Christian. Nothing wrong with it. But it's almost as if she was ignoring the path she was supposed to be on, and then finally she got the path she was supposed to be on, and things became easier.
it's just been incredible. He brought so many good people to me right away to kind of like scoop me under their wing, and like the guys in Cultish I told you about, just kind of give me solid theology and good discipleship and just good people, because you need to be surrounded by good people that love God if you're gonna stay vigorous on your walk, because it's so easy to get swept up in all the crap.
Of course.
Yeah. So I was really blessed for that. God brought so many good people into my life, and that he continues to. It's really incredible. And that's what I mean. That I'm so honored and humbled too that this is what he's decided to be done for me. And that he saw
Daily
me
Wire, not Daily Caller, Daily Wire, but I agree with you.
all of the
I
junk
agree.
that I was in. And
She wants her own show on the Daily Wire.
Yeah.
And I think back to
as the person who left the left in New Age
when
woo-woo
my grandma
ideology.
passed, and how that felt. I was mad at God at the time, and I remember writing about that specifically. Like saying,
We're
like,
almost done.
God wouldn't do this to a good person.
We're so
but it's
close.
Like,
Hang in
see
there.
like all the
You're
moving
about to
parts
make
of it
it.
now. I see if that never happened the way it happened, I never would have been led down this dark path. And it's like God kind of knew that the only way he would be able, that I'd be able to see his light if I was so far in darkness, that at that point I literally had nowhere else to look except up, like for the first time in my life.
Yeah. This is the virtue of resignation. And I remember it too when I was a teenager and had to deal with loss. I did come to the conclusion that you could either react with anger and a chip on your shoulder that would probably never go away and probably only continue to deepen and chippen, or with resignation. And it's very difficult to react with resignation because we, always want to be vigorous, and I'm of the Italian people. We're very keen on vengeance, and
Yes.
blood boils a little bit, and so resignation is a tricky one, but it's a virtue for a reason, and
because you're releasing resistance.
This question, which I guess brings us entirely full circle to astrology, in a way, in the good way, which is, for all my sins, I have 100% confidence in providence. I am just so convinced of providence that I usually don't get too riled when something really bad happens or when something really good happens. And it's probably going to kill my career, because if you want to be a professional conservative, you have to be angry all the time. And I'm not. I'm almost never angry. But that's why. That's why I have.
Well, that explains it.
For every other flaw, because I've just seen it.
That's the most enlightening thing that Michael Knowles has said in this entire thing.
Especially when you're really screwing up, God.
You want to be a professional conservative,
hey, idiot,
you have to be angry.
I'm here. Hey, look,
Yeah.
my priest father, George Rutler in New York, has a great book called Coincidentally. And in the little flap of it, he says, it's a wicked generation that seeks for signs and wonders, but it's a stupid generation that ignores signs and wonders.
Wow. Yeah, that's good.
Sometimes they're kind of undeniable, you know? And when you see that and you say, okay, there is a divine order to things. And so, all right, shake it off.
Yeah.
That's not
Keep on going.
That's why
incompatible
I
with
said at
woo
the beginning
beliefs.
that my grandmom dying was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And it's the worst thing that will ever happen to me because I have that knowing now that no matter what happens, like first of all, Romans believe it's 8:18. It says this, you know, the sufferings of this world can't compare to the eternal glory. And I think of that all the time if something's wrong, and ultimately God's in control and it's
Right.
okay. So it's been I mean, for me to say that versus what I would have said a year ago, a year and 6 months ago, totally different. Like totally different. Because I would have believed that all the suffering would be, and in a way I was right, in fact, eternal if we didn't fix it. If we weren't the ones in authority, if we weren't the ones that were sovereign, if we weren't the ones that were in control. And now it's just, nope, it's God.
You know, there's a baker down in my favorite neighborhood in the world, I guess, but it's in the Bronx. It's called Arthur Avenue. It's the real Little Italy in the Bronx. And this baker, I've been going since I was a kid, and he wore this hat, I love Jesus. And he had a kind of a rough early part of his life and conversion experience, goes to daily mass, and he's just a wonderful guy. And as I was reverting, I was thinking of all these very, you know, abstract arguments for the existence of God and trying to pursue all this sort of more of an intellectual path. And I was talking to him about this, and he was kind of, it was kind of a pivotal moment with him. He goes, hey, buddy boy, you know, I do my best, God does the rest. You know, buddy, I do my best, God does the rest. I say, oh, that's wiser than pretty much any book I've read in the last 6 months. It's not that I'm gonna chart the stars and talk to the card dealer and do the necromancy, and then I'm gonna do it, and I, me, my, and I, me,
He
my.
just
It's not, you
compared
know,
tarot card
I'll
reading
do
to
my best.
necromancy.
God will do the rest.
That's
And
nice.
honestly, it's exhausting
That's
to be in
nice.
that lifestyle and in those beliefs. And I actually had someone say to me once, well, it seems like Christianity is the easy way out because of what we're saying. Like, oh, well, if God's in control, then I'm not, and it's all in his hands. Great. I don't have to worry about anything. Not like that at all, first of all. But
His yoke is easy and his burden is light. If that's what they mean.
Indeed.
But that's
And
probably not what they mean.
that's not what they mean. They mean that, well, if you're saying God's in control, God is providence, then what about you? Like, where's your role in it? It's the easy way out, where, you know, maybe the New Age beliefs are all about healing yourself and making yourself better. But really, that's the easy way out because it comes back to, again, accountability.
Right.
You're not accountable to God. So that's the easy way out. Because if you're not accountable to the creator of the universe, then you're just accountable to yourself, which is the creator of your chaos, essentially.
When you love someone, you want to make that person happy. And that carries an obligation. And the church is traditionally understood as the bride of Christ.
Right.
And is the bride of Christ.
And
So
exactly.
we have an
And
obligation.
it's not easy. Like, God makes it simple, but it's not easy to walk the narrow road every day. I forget who said it. Perhaps it was John Piper who said that no one like the Christian understands temptation because people just, whenever they feel tempted, they just give into it.
Yeah.
Whereas when Christians feel tempted, you kind of got to put your blinders on and just keep going.
And you sometimes give into it.
Right, because we're going to. That's why
creatures.
Jesus, you know, died for sin, because he knew sin would be the biggest problem.
Yeah.
So I mean, I fully agree with that, and I see now how all that work, you know, it was always that's the mantra, doing the work, you're doing the work, you're doing the work, and that's self-help too. It's like you're doing the work, you're doing the work to heal, you're doing the work
Rachel,
to heal. It's
that's
like,
funny.
Okay,
That's a
but
good
for what?
joke.
Because it's all futile.
Yeah.
Because you can't save yourself. I will say you can't be your own problem, your own solution. And it's like self-help, self-love, self-hate. Like, it's all one and the same, because ultimately, what's the root? it's self. And so sometimes I get, well, is it wrong to want to better yourself? And like,
The root
absolutely not,
isn't
of course
self.
not. I think that in a way, we all want to be better, hopefully. We all want to be a better person. And I believe that is kind of, the knowing that we have sin, but I digress.
Right. That's the process of sanctification, is becoming holier.
But people outside of it think that, well, if the opposite of self-love, that's self-hate. But that's not true. I think the opposite of self-love is self-sacrifice.
Mm.
And that's really kind of what walking with God is in a lot of ways.
Right. There's that idea. I forget which playwright wrote it. I figured it was Shaw or Moliere, or I don't know. It was one of those guys. Said that hell is where you have nothing to do all day but amuse yourself. Right. So it's and it is. Everyone knows it. Everyone knows it who's ever had a vacation from school. By day 3, you just want to pull your hair out. You're just you've got nothing left to do. You have no sense of purpose. And so when you are sacrificing for others, when you're serving others, you will have far greater love than when you're just trying to amuse yourself.
And that
Which
doesn't
is
mean
what
serving
you're
others
doing.
based on,
Oh my God,
they
these
wake up
fucking
one
people.
day and they'd want to be a boy if they're a girl. That
doesn't serve anybody.
It means serving people in truth.
Yeah.
And leading with truth, which brings us back to, there is an objective reality and there is an objective standard and there is an objective truth. The definition of truth is not fluid or won't be truth. Truth is
grift,
unwavering,
rock solid.
So there has to be a truth by definition.
You either moor yourself to that.
The Daily Wire will
rock,
like me. I'm really
or
hot.
you're just floating into
and I'm
outer
gonna say
space
all
next
the
to all your
things they want
star
me to,
systems
and
and
it's
your
gonna
old
be
alien
great,
buddies.
and they're gonna give me
That's
my
not a
own
great place to
show.
be.
Sure ain't.
I'm gonna talk about God.
Such a pleasure to be with you.
Wow.
We'll have to have you back and do another 2 hours.
Oh, please do.
Sounds good.
Michael.
Where can people find you in the meantime?
Please
So
do.
I'm on Instagram. My full name, Angela Marie Ucci. It's ANGELA MARIEUCCI. And then my podcast is Heaven and Healing Podcast, and that's the actual N symbol. And that right now is on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And who knows, maybe I'll be on the Daily Wire or something.
Yeah, exactly.
You're on the Daily Wire right now.
You know what I mean.
I'm on Instagram at Michael J. Knowles. And
grift. Maybe I'll be on the Daily Wire someday. Should I wear a lower cut shirt next time, or maybe something a little sheer and see-through? Grift. That's what that was. And I hate calling people grifters. I really do. But that's what that was. What the fuck? For years, I've said about the Daily Wire, I'm like, Michael Knowles is all right. I don't mind him as much as I mind some of the other people. He's okay. No, Michael Knowles is not okay. That was worse for me than that acid trip of a monstrosity that we watched on Monday. That had nothing to do with what woo-woo people actually believe at all. Wow. All right, guys, congratulations for everyone who made it to the end. Now, just to remind you guys, tomorrow we are not going to be on this channel. We are going to be on my second channel, youtube.com/activelyunwoke, and you're not going to want to miss this one. We're busting out the Unwoke bingo cards. We're going old school, a good old college lecture on whiteness as the core barrier to liberation, and this is relatively new. This was in November. This was a month ago that this lecture was given at a college. And we're going to watch it tomorrow on my second channel. Grab your beverages. Come join us for happy hours on Fridays. And then, of course, on Saturday, we also have a banner episode of Socialism Saturday, because Haymarket Books just today streamed a 2-hour roundtable about queer Marxism. And you guys know how much I love queer Marxism. It's the most dystopian of all dystopia. And so we're going to be watching that on Saturday at 6 p.m. All right, guys, I got to go. I got to go drink some more to regain my sanity and all of the brain cells that I just lost watching that monstrosity of an interview. But guys, take care. Mount the like button on the way out the door. We'll see you tomorrow for happy hour.